Ladies and gentlemen, officially welcome to our Campfire chat preview, review, live react, and everything. I think we do have a countdown already on youtube.com/Diablo. So there should be the live countdown. They got the Campfire chat 2.0 PDR. See, I told you, it's Diablo 2.0, right? Starting at 6 minutes. Things are going real. They have multiple live streams again. Sometimes they put like multiple live streams now. That's the one. I wonder why they would take such an ugly thumbnail. I really need to talk about like Blizzard and the thumbnails they're using, right? It's kind of like, boys, you're a multi-billion-dollar company and you're using the most ugly thumbnail. Does it start at 8? Yes, it starts at 8. It starts in 30 minutes. And then we're going to get to see the new progression, the new level cap. How many Paragon points is it? Are we getting new Paragon boards? There is many things like that they haven't told us that we are still in the need to know department, right? We really want to know what you have been cooking up there, Blizzard. Please tell us, essentially, right? So I'm positively looking forward to. Oh god, that was the worst thing that could actually be upgraded on Dariel's Visage. Poison resistance, maximum poison resistance again. Do that one more time. We're throwing hands. 108 to all stats. I mean, technically, also terrible. No mid-season 5 patch. So I have bad news for you. The mid-season 5 patch was the goblins. Probably going to waffle for 2 hours and shows a few things that are useful. I have good news for you. That won't happen. Because you might not be aware, but the progression is changing. So first and foremost, level is going down to level 60. That's already significant. You're not going to be level 100 anymore, but that's already taking... Like, how do you explain this to people now? What does this mean? What does level... What happens to Paragon? So if you're going for level 60, are you getting 10 more skill points? And that's useless, because what am I going to do with 10 more skill points? I mean, for my Sorc, it would be amazing. For my Druid, it would be great. For my Necro, it's useless. For my Rogue, fantastic. So 10 more skill points is truly something extraordinary. But then we also need more choices, right? If you, then the skill trees need to become bigger. Because if I get 10 more skill points and my skill tree stays the same, like without any new options, that's kind of boring. Right? Thanks for all the help with all the leveling guides. Funny story that you say that, but we have to redo all of them. I mean, with Vessel of the Hatred coming, with the level 60, new level 60 cap that is seemingly there, we'll need all new leveling guides. Especially with the new progression. So there's something on the horizon that will surprise you. We'll get more skills, one more skill, one more passive is in the room currently. So one thing that might surprise you is that currently we have World Tier 1, 2, 3, and 4, correct? But they're hinting at a new progression system that is kind of like the Profined Mine Cages. So I would assume that we're going to have World Tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 maybe? And you're going to have to essentially say, okay, from level 1 to 30, I'm in World Tier 4? And then, like, maybe you don't even have to go World Tier 1 and 2. Maybe you can straight up jump to World Tier 3, correct? The new World Tier 3. And then for the next 10 levels, you're in World Tier 3. But then if you get your resistances straight, like, until level 50, you're in World Tier 4. And then for 50 to 60, you're going to be in World Tier 5. And then when you're 60, you actually need to swap to World Tier 6 to get the greater affixes. Right? So that's the thing, because if they do more world tiers and more difficulties, then items gotta be gate capped, right? So if there's World Tier 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that means that greater affix items will only be achievable if you actually move yourself at greater world tiers. Are they giving anything to PvPers? No. This all sounds a bit much, Chris. You're saying this sounds like a bit much, but we're talking here about Diablo 2.0. The Vessel of Hatred is meant as a... How do I say this now? So the intention with Vessel of Hatred is, like, it's a whole new world. They want players that started on release to start the game and be like, what the fuck? right? This is the impression they're aiming for. And that's also very important. This is like a restart of the game, right? They want to bamboozle people because the release was okay. Let's be fair. The release was okay, right? But they failed to bamboozle the people. They failed to put this like the awe, the shock and awe into them. It was more like, ah, yeah, cool, right? We have nightmare dungeons. So now with all the cool new things they're having, they truly are in a unique position to be like, bam, 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 look at everything we got for you. And that's what they need to do, right? It sounds like a lot, and it sounds like over the top, but when else? Like if your expansion is not doing this, right? Any matchmaking news? What do you mean with matchmaking, please? The group finder is not going to matchmake. Very important. I'll get to the group finder in a bit, but ask your question correctly. I'll tell you. So they need this wow factor because that's going to set the tone for the next year, right? If the expansion is merely okay, right? If the max is like, oh, like, you know, it needs to be like, this needs shock and awe. We need shock and awe tonight in general with the expansion. So the group finder is just an LFG system, but it's actually more than that. So how the group finder works is actually very simple. You list a group and people can just press join. You know, like how in other group finders, you can like decline people. You can see who it is. Now, so I list a group and I say, I want to do Helltide. And then I just forget that I listed a group and people might or might not join. Right? And that's it. So you don't have to screen people. You don't have to check what equipment they have. Like they either join or not. And if you don't like them, you can still kick them. Right? But it's going to be like a no barrier, simple entry way to get you inside, right? So like imagine the group finder just making it easier for you to find people to play with. Like let's be fair. If I'm going Dark Citadel, okay, we're talking about the hardest content that's coming, the Dark Citadel, right? The super juiced up dungeon, the raid dungeon, in case you heard about it. Like, am I going to use the group finder for that? Nah, I'm going to go on Discord and ask for people, right? I'm going to be like, hey, have you done this before? Can you show me your gear? Do you have like, are you good enough, right? So like, that's not what I'm going to use the group finder for. But if I want to go into a Helltide, right? I'm going to activate the group finder. At what moment is it good to follow a build guide? Oh, that's very simple. Like it depends on if the build guide is leveling or endgame. So most of my build guides are leveling and endgame, so you can actually follow them from level 1 on. Were you able to continue the story on an old character or make a new one? You can on the Eternal Realm play Nahantu if you then wish to. You can also play the complete story again with a Spiritborn. So they said this. If you want to play the complete game again from level 1 with a Spiritborn, through the whole story you could. You can also just skip the campaign and start at the Nahantu campaign straight away. So with level 1, you can jump into the Nahantu campaign. And that's the plan. I find myself looking at the guide more than I actually play. Well, there's a cool tool from Mobalytics where you can essentially put the guide on screen with you. So generally speaking, the Mobalytics tool, Mobalytics where I put my guides, you can just have an overlay on screen that you activate with Alt-Tab, I think it was. Alt-Tab. And then the overlay just pops up in the game and you can just check in the game for the skills you wanted to do and so on. You can even put the paragons side by side, so you don't need more than one monitor. I generally like I don't use it often because I do have 6 monitors. I'm sorry. I'm a terrible person, right? So yeah. You're only playing solo right now. See, I only play solo too, but let me ask you a question. If you had a group finder and you were planning to farm the Helltide now, let's say you want to farm the Helltide for 30 minutes, okay? You want to farm the Helltide for 30 minutes. That's your plan. And there's a group finder. And you could essentially, as you start doing the Helltide, just list a group and then forget that you listed a group. And if anyone jumps on, you get them also like doing the Queen of the Helltide with you. You can loot the chests they open up and so on. So like you have to put 0 effort in to essentially have people potentially joining you for a Helltide grind that you were anyways doing for 30 minutes. So it's kind of like a win-win scenario that doesn't cost you anything. You could even put on, like, there's tags. Okay, there's tags in the chat. And the text in the chat, they're saying, there's text in the group finder, and you could put the non-chatty in there. Like, doesn't talk, right? Doesn't interact, just wants to grind. You find Infernal Horde depressingly boring. I have to say, I love Infernal Hordes. I find them intriguing, but it's mainly my roguelite brain that's being triggered. So I just enjoy trying to find the right combination of boons and banes to get me my most points possible, right? I just enjoy that combination, trying to see. Also for me, the Infernal Hordes are like a puzzle. That's why I play different characters. Because how do I make a character be able to essentially do the highest level of the Infernal Hordes, right? How do I make my character be strong enough to pull this off? Sitting in a single room, barely moving for 10 minutes. Well, it's not about moving. So maybe it has to do with me being a Necromancer main. So I never found it appealing. Have you ever played Path of Exile? So if you play Path of Exile, and if you're at the mapping stage of Path of Exile, and also at the leveling stage, you see people just flying through the levels, right? Using their movement skills to be as fast as possible, literally not looking at what they're bypassing. I'd rather be stuck in a room with hordes of minions than continuously, mindlessly movements blasting to move faster through an environment. See, that's just simply me and how I enjoy my games, right? I don't want to just like hardcore parkour, right? I enjoy. I don't mind. Like if I have to kill hordes of minions in a Infernal Horde, please bring it on. But that's the thing. Everyone likes different things. I enjoyed the vaults to the max. The vaults were the coolest dungeon for me ever, despite people thinking they were horrible, right? I mean, people found the vaults terrible with the traps and everything. I'm not going to avoid traps, blah. Nah, it was so much fun. It was just a very nice, streamlined little dungeon. The end room was brilliant, right? I mean, getting to the point where you just completely outbeat the end room. Like, you could stand there, you could farm it while the fire hazard was trying to pummel you. That was cool. And then people complained so much that they essentially ruined the runes of warding because people were too bad. I'm going to say it, guys. People sucked so hard that they had to nerf the traps, right? I just enjoy the change of scenery. See, God, that's a valid point. Like, if you enjoy the change of scenery, if you actually like traveling in the Diablo world, I can understand that, my friend. That's cool. I mean, Diablo looks beautiful, and you might enjoy Nahantu. I don't know if you watched any Gamescom streams or if you watched any gameplay of Spiritborn so far. The world itself, Nahantu, the whole region, is beautiful. Like, you have this forest, and the forest is kind of lush at some points, but then there's also these deserty, sandy regions full of cannibals. But not only that, there's also, since it's like the Vessel of Hatred, right? And you might have seen how Mephisto is. Mephisto is this gooey black substance, right? How he's having Neyrel sucked up. And there's a lot of this you can also find in the Vessel of Hatred, right? Where the whole region is kind of like very dark, and it reminds you of like this bio horror that you have in some of the dungeons. I don't know, like these kind of like bio horrors that you have in hell, like where always things are, where like these tentacles and centipedes and like pumping hearts on the side, like, but everything like in this black gooey texture. You wonder how Spiritborn is going to do an endgame? Spiritborn is going to be heavily broken in every single way, and that's fine because it's new. And if I play something new, I want it to be heavily broken. I don't want to play the new class and the new class is okay. Nope. I'll play the new class and it's better be shitting broken, right? It's better be doing 1 trillion damage per hit. Like, we're better talking about like absolutely face-melting devastation. else we're not happy, right? I mean, see, like I got a very, let me see, Don the Crown had a very good Spiritborn upload because he had a Spiritborn gameplay, no commentary. That was actually amazing from Don. Let me wait until the ad is run down. So this is kind of like what we have here in the region. See, like that's what I'm talking about. This here, this Vessel of Hatred, Mephisto kind of stuff. Can you see, like the whole black gooey inside the lush forest? You can kind of see that the corruption of Mephisto has been like part of this, right? This has been gone in there. Any basic tips for starting the game for the first time? Enjoy the campaign, Michael, because you're going to have to play the campaign. I mean, this is obviously like kind of like the standard design, but there's new opponents. You see these guys? These are the Mephisto opponents. These Terrors, these Hell Terrors that are also like these tentacle monsters with too many eyes. Kind of like a bit Cthulhu horror. That's like the new Mephisto kind of demons, right? They have a name, I forget about it, though, how were they called again? They mentioned it in a stream. But that's kind of like the new style of opponent you'll find. Chaos, thank you for the beautiful 7 years of support, brother. Thanks for being here the one or the other months. Thank you for the 84 centuries. Appreciate it. That's like, we're personally, I feel like, you know, this just looks great. Then more of the bio-horror, that's what I meant. Everything. Then you have like in comparison, then you have like the normal Helltide region right outside. But even the Helltide region, you're like consistently facing new enemies. By the way, if you're looking at this is a level 30 character. Chad. Look at that. Attack power, armor, life. Are you seeing something here? Chad. That's the normal attack power, armor, life for a character at this level. We're going away from 10,000, 100,000 life, 5 billion attack power. No, it's not bad gear. This is intended. 1,000 armor is the max. We're getting insane stat squishing. It's called stat squishing. It's going like, right? It's so low, it's not. Because if your opponents are only doing 10 damage, right? It's actually fine. I mean, like, if you look at this right now, let's see if we can jump a bit further forward. Like, see, like, look at the damage he's dealing. 700 damage max, right? So here, that's 680 damage. So that's like the normal 12, 8, 10, 9. So the normal damage is just melts the enemies, right? Just destroys them. Here, that's Gorilla gameplay. Gorilla is actually really nice. We're going to be, like, I'm going to make a Gorilla Spiritborn too. I have a good theory craft running for this, and it's an infinite barrier kind of Spiritborn, if they didn't nerf it. It's super funny because Gorilla has an attack, it's called Crushing Hands, where he goes bop, 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 bop on the ground. And that Crushing Hands, if you manage to get infinite resource, you're having infinite barrier. Because for every Crushing Hands damage, you produce barrier. Gorilla looks like Blood Surge 2.0. Yes, somewhat. It's really fun, and you can obviously mix and match it with other things together, right? To kind of like get a bit more out of it. But Gorilla is truly like a cool spec. I mean, there's also the world where you can play. That's another bio-horror, by the way. There you see. That looks great, right? Priestess of Hatred, chat. So there's even a way to play the Spiritborn ranged. Look at that. You can play it ranged. They stat squish every aspect and would work if they used to. I mean, I'd rather have a stat squish than go to trillions of damage, because that's like the thing. Right now, they're desperately nerfing everything to try to get it down because people were already doing trillions of damage, right? So rather like stat squish things and maybe have someone do 1 million damage later on, that's fine, right? If you're level 60 with perfect gear and manage to do 1 million, that's cool. I feel like if 1 million is the highest damage number we can achieve, that's perfect. But I like, right? 1 million sounds fantastic. By the way, let's check if the Diablo stream Campfire is We're here in the live portion. We still have 17 minutes before it starts. We're gonna have to see like how loud we have to make the stream. So you have to tell me later if the stream is actually loud enough. More Spiritborn. I had this idea that we should be able to use Resplendent Spark at the Occultist to roll on the stat you really want on a specific piece of gear. It would be great to have a mechanic like this, but I don't think there's anything planned to have specific gear rolls. So they sadly do want this RNG. They want you to... It's meant as a gold sink. Okay, so why is the Enchanter the way it is? It's a gold sink. Right? You need gold sinks in the game to make sure that people don't have infinite money. Why ever you need to make sure that people don't have infinite money. But that's why it exists. That's why the Enchanter won't get changed. That's why they want the RNG. That's why they don't mind you rolling away 1 billion gold for it, right? Even 1 million is a big number that's nonsensical. 1 million is a big number that is nonsensical. I want to agree, but it is something amazing to achieve. So if the average damage is like, if you're seeing 100,000 crit, and that's insane, right? But then somehow you find a combination that would allow you to deal 1 million. 1 million damage, right? Because in season 1, back in the days, 1 million damage was really exciting. If someone managed to do this, pinnacle, you know? And that feeling is missing, because how much damage are we doing right now? We're doing 3 billion, we're doing 5 billion, I do 400 million on my Blood Surge. And you know what? It doesn't feel exciting. Doing 400 million damage doesn't feel exciting. How can that be, chat? How can we reach the point where putting out this much damage feels like meh? That's not good. I'm still disappointed that we get a bug druid. Spiritborn is so much more. Spiritborn is so much more than just a druid. Once you get, I got to play it. I kind of get to play it a lot. And I can tell you, like at Gamescom, you could essentially check it out. It's like so much more than just Druid 2.0. It's kind of like a druid squished together with a rogue, and then you put a shaman on top and then slapped a bit of monk inside of it. And the best part is the freedom of fuck around and find out that the class has is nice. Are the updates for Necro on the PDR? Yes, every single class update is on the PDR. They promised that. So the new key, the new skills, the new passives, the new Paragon board, maybe, the Paragon changes in general, all of this is on the PDR. All of this will be available and we'll be able to check it out. The question is, when is the PDR? Considering the way how this has gone so far, the PDR will have to be in a week or so already. Because if they want to include anything meaningful, I mean, it needs to be like the latest, the second week of December, right? Next Wednesday or Thursday. They can't hold it back longer. I mean, if they do a week-long PDR and like it needs to come. There's a melee element to it. So there's not only a melee element to it. You have a melee element, you have an area element, so area of effect, you have a caster element. So you can play this as a melee attacker. You can play this as a ranged caster. You can play this as a melee caster hybrid. You can play it as a tanky barrier producing kind of Blood Surge playstyle. There is a complete ranged version. So like an archer, you can actually play it, but it's more like a magic archer. You can play it as a absolutely cracked up movement class, more cracked up than rogue. That's essentially what the Spiritborn offers to you. It's a bunch of playstyles and they're all good. So this is not like a question of inferior and superior playstyles. Every Spirit Guardian is viable. The Jaguar, the Centipede, the Eagle, and the Gorilla, they all make for incredible endgame builds. Right? And it's not like currently with Necromancer. We play Blood or Bone Spirit. Everything else is shit. Correct? Euler, the Centipede is interesting because you know what it has? It has healing. And then healing can give you barrier. So if you're healing with your skills, you can barrier up, and then you can create an infinite loop of healing into barrier. Right? That's kind of like really cool what the Centipede can actually do for you. And Spiritborn, like you've seen this actually here. Let's see if I can find this. Spiritborn has unique rings. Look at this. This is the ring of the Gorilla Centipede. Okay, it's called the Ring of the Gorilla Centipede. And it says total armor, damage reduction from poison enemies, patient guard, it's a Spiritborn skill, but then generate 6 vigor each time you deal thorns damage. Gain toxic skin passive effect. And since this says it's the Ring of the Gorilla Centipede, so Gorilla skill and Centipede skill, I guess we can assume that there's a Ring of the Eagle Jaguar, that there's a Jaguar Centipede ring, that there's a Gorilla Eagle ring, right? So there's probably more rings than just that, which gives you even more fun, viable playstyles. Correct? There's just so much in this expansion that isn't clear on first sight, in my opinion, right? That truly makes this stand out as worth it. And even if you don't want to play the Spiritborn, I hope that the other class changes are significant enough. Because we should be getting new key passives, Chad. And if Necromancer needs one thing, it's a new key passive, right? like because the current ones are kind of boring, aren't they? So please. We finally get a good class for a Thorns build. Yes, because so you might not know this, but D4 builds. Oops, sorry, that's D4 builds. Oh, Jesus Christ, still not D4 builds. Now we got it. Build planner, so you can actually have the full Spiritborn. If you look at this, so it says casting a gorilla skill deals 100% thorns to enemies you hit and grants barrier for 10% of maximum life. Okay, so whenever you cast a skill, your thorns deal damage. And you have skills that essentially interact with thorns and do more thorns. So smash enemies in front of you, dealing 100% damage. And that, I think, scales with your thorns. Then you can have Toxic Skin, and Toxic Skin does poison effects, but also Toxic Skin passively increases thorns damage you deal to poison enemies by 100%. So if I have Toxic Skin, I passively poison enemies around me that attack me, right? I get attacked, they get poisoned. Then I deal 100% bonus damage to them, and my attacks all deal 100% of my thorns as damage whenever I attack. So that means 100% of my thorns with the razor plate armor, right? Like I do huge damage, and that damage is 100% already increased just like that. Interesting, ain't it? So a Centipede Gorilla AFK build? No, I wouldn't be really AFK. I mean, you just fucking hit the enemy. I mean, if your thorns do damage when you're attacking, you just slam them with your skills and do damage. Right? So, like, this is so much more than the passive thorns build we have right now. You're not standing around and waiting to get hit. Nah. You're slamming the opponent. Right? That's so much better. Because why would I want to wait to get hit? I want to slam. I want to hurt. I want to do numbers to my opponents, right? Oh, we get the start, I think.
Vessel of Hatred, we travel south to Nahantu, a region with both deep ancient jungles and vast
there we go.
Plains. It's the last stretch of land in Sanctuary's eastern continent, and we've packed it full of experiences
if it's
for
too
every
loud,
type
tell me.
of player.
I'm trying to make it loud enough.
In this expansion, there's a whole lot to explore under the dark canopy of Nahantu.
Nahantu is the southernmost region of the eastern continent that Diablo 4 has been taking place in. It's the last region that we haven't visited yet so far in the game, but it is one that we've been to before in Diablo.
There's lots of new areas. We have 6 in total. 4 of them are jungle themed, and then we have 2 that are Red Rock Canyon, but each one of them has their own unique identity.
Areas. Good fun.
When you first arrive in Nahantu, you're in this place called Lingering Hatred. This is high treetops canopies where you're almost walking amongst the branches high above the jungle floor.
Imagine a thick canopy that the light is just barely poking through.
The whole area has been infected by this thing called the Hollows infestation. The Hollows are a new enemy that's associated with Mephisto. They themselves are kind of like a tar-like substance creature born straight out of the depths of hell.
It feels a little twisted. There's a sickness to the area itself.
Humans have ventured into this deep part of the jungle where there's all this poisonous plants and flora. The dregs actually started experimenting with eating these hallucinogens, and it put them into this aggressive psycho rage.
The dregs were pretty fun because
I like how excited Rex is. Rex is the lead game designer. Good guy. Really nice person.
And then half of a body with
how do I know?
drag
I met
on
him.
top of it,
He's
kind
cool.
of controlling it and telling it where to go and tossing poisonous bombs at the player. When you come across it, it's very memorable.
And then we've also got the area of Tenganse, where you've got the Tenganse Plateau, which is full of these red rocked plateaus and canyons.
Imagine getting up above the land. Those gigantic walls have pockets inside where monsters could live. It offered up a lot of opportunity to bring back a monster family like the Lucuni.
We're bringing them back in a new way here as a fully fleshed out monster family with multiple classes.
What a more brute force looks like, what a caster looks like. They are very much apex predators, and we're definitely in their territory.
There's quite some
And
cool
then there's a little sub-area called
Lucuni.
Skittering
Like, they're
Earth.
pretty damn
the name
big.
alone makes your skin crawl.
And it's bug infested, and you can see how the bugs have destroyed the jungles and kind of input their influence on it. Within the Field of Giants, you have these giant corpses of these long-dead demons that humans have begun to mine away at for their resources. While they've got a lot of use out of them, they're also toxic to the land around it.
The notion of massive demons walking sanctuary 1,000 years ago is really thought-provoking.
Plateau's also got just
Why can
this
we not
beautiful
fight
color
these
scheme to the
giant
lighting.
demons, chat?
It's really lovely to be there.
Why?
And then horrific at the same time. You know, it's great.
The mercenaries in Vessel of Hatred are a group of people who we like to describe as ordinary people with extraordinary skills. They
Loot
have
filter
the
is not
same
coming.
level of will to
I can
fight
tell you that
against
straight away.
demons of hell.
No loot
There's
filters,
4
sorry.
mercs that you can collect over the course of the campaign. Starts with Rahir, a blacksmith and a shield bearer, is more a defensive fighter.
He's able to go in there and soak up damage, use his shield as a bulwark.
Also, I'll tell you, the game still does
You meet
not
him
need
early
a
on
loot
in the
filter.
campaign, and he's one who introduces you to the mercenary network. You end up finding acquisition quests
Many
for
reasons
3 other
for
mercs that
or
you can
against
find throughout the
one
course of
even.
the story.
Subo, the drunken archer, is going to work really well for people who want someone who's out of the main melee, in the back, offering utility and that kind of range support.
Then we have Variana, a berserker crone, who's a melee combat fighter, close range. She's got a really cool combat
That
meter,
lady is
a
the best,
massive
by the way,
meter
chat.
where You need to keep
She's gonna
killing
make you
enemies to
faster.
get the meter to be filled.
So she's
She's
a
got
bonus
bunch of
movement
really
speed
interesting
boosting.
utility skills that you can kind of build in.
Finally, we have the demon child Aldkin, who's a magic user who can transform himself from human form to demon
And
form
Aldkin stinks.
and join you in combat.
I'm sorry,
There's this really
Alkin.
great reinforcement
You look cool,
ability
but you
where
stink.
you can take one of the mercenary skills and attach it to one of your powers so that when you use that skill, it calls them in to do a specific skill.
With the mercenaries for Vessel of Hatred, one of the things we are expanding on is the skill tree. For Diablo 3, you had a very basic type of mercenary, but this time you can actually push a little bit more into the skill tree and make the mercenary the way you would want to play.
Going through each
It's still
mercenary
coming down
progression
to
arc and
buffing you,
outfitting
by
their
the way.
skill tree so that it's complementary to your character build, I think that's where the fun in the mercenary system really lies.
Just see the mercenary as a bonus buff to you. More armor,
The Dark
more
Citadel
resistance,
is a new
more attack
in-game
speed.
feature that's coming in
Stuff like
Vessel of
that.
Hatred. It's an entirely cooperative player experience. All the mechanics within it are based around you working together with your party members to solve the challenges and face the first Khazra hordes within.
One of the outcomes of the Mage Wars is this giant crater and
Dark
all the
Citadel
souls
is
that
brilliant.
were kind of lost
It's going
in
to be
it
so
from
good.
those wars.
Herman, good to see you there.
The
Thank you for 111 months.
goal of the first Khazra, who are kind of
Hope you're
the
doing great, brother.
original Khazra, they're using the powers within the Citadel found within this crater to perform experiments to try and bring back their dark god.
Only recently, people have started going missing. They head into the Khazra region, they disappear, never to be seen again. So it's clear that whatever they're planning is about to come to fruition, and your job as the players to get in there and stop it.
Citadels are a place where we take what is the best part of Diablo, combat, and we test it in a different way, which is adding in cooperative mechanics that you have to
You can
manage
do the
on
Dark
top of
Citadel with
that.
2 players,
For
chat.
example, a
You
boss
only need
has an
one good
attack,
friend.
and as a player, you have to collect an item
Herman,
that
I'm
allows
doing
you
great.
to
Thank you for
reflect the
asking.
attack
Also
back at him.
slated.
So there's a little bit of a Twitch
King with the
level
92
mechanic
months,
there
brother.
where you actually have to time your reaction shot. What's interesting about it is when you get multiple people in there, we're each responsible.
I really like the way they show gameplay by 5-year-old players. I'm going to give the feedback to them to please do more skilled gameplay because of the noise.
Coordinating as a team, and that's sort of the example
People.
of what Citadel gameplay feels like.
When designing the Citadel, we designed a lot of really cool bosses. And so one of the things that we did is we took that design and
Held them.
made like armor sets for each of the
I get a
classes.
direct line to the death,
That way
no
you
worries.
feel like you took their armor and you feel like you're wearing a little bit of them.
Look at this
after
armor,
your
by the way.
victory.
It's so good.
We also have a currency that's dedicated to Citadel, where as you play through, a vendor can be interacted with to buy custom cosmetics that are unique to the Citadel. You can play with 2 people, but the ideal experience is for 4. In order to facilitate that, we've built an all-new Party Finder feature, and the community has been pretty vocal about wanting this for a long time. It made a lot of sense to us to pair it with this
If you're
new
not
Citadel
using
mode.
this, you're a
It really
terrible
is an
person.
activity that's geared
Yeah.
towards people who
I know so many people
love to
ask for a
play
Party
together
Finder.
with
You
their
better use
friends
this
or
now.
with strangers and enjoy that cooperative gameplay. I cannot wait for players to get into the world. I'm really just excited.
If I don't
for
have
people
friends in
to
D4,
see
then you'll
all
find
the
new
little
friends with a
hidden
Party Finder.
Storytelling elements that the team
Listen.
has fit in.
There's
new
interesting things
friends.
to find and see
Social-
and discover
social gameplay.
around every corner, and it's just a really great experience getting to explore and hunt too.
I don't have friends either, chat. I have family. I have you, the community.
Hello, Diablo community. Welcome to another Campfire chat.
You love
is
this guy?
The patch
He knows something you
2.0
want to know.
Campfire chat for PTR. As you guys can see, we're in a little bit of a new environment. We're all doing this from home. We had to do a quick last-minute pivot about 24 hours ago. I was struck by some con flu after Gamescom, but I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our production teams behind the scenes. Lucas, Jade, and Rich, they made a quick pivot to allow us to do this and for us to be safe and to be able to still give you guys this exciting information for patch 2.0. But to lead us off, I do want us to do some quick intros for everyone here on the actual panel. So Colin, would you like to start off the
If it's too
intros?
quiet, tell me. I'll make it louder.
Yeah, sure. I'm Colin on the design team.
Hello, I'm Aislinn Hall. I'm a systems designer with a focus on live balance.
They're all very quiet, even for me.
Hey everyone, I'm Charles Dunn. I'm a class designer working on the live balance for Diablo 4.
Hey everyone, I'm Jeevan Sidhu, and I also work on the systems team.
Awesome. So we got a whole panel here, way more than what we normally have because we have so much to actually
They look
cover.
like they don't want to be here. Trust me,
We
that person wants to
do
be
want
here.
to jump
This
into
one
things
too,
pretty
he too, and him
immediately,
too.
but I did want to recap really quickly, obviously.
Because I know what they're going to
last
tell you,
week
but
we were,
trust me.
At Gamescom, we made some really big announcements.
They're excited.
For Vessel of Hatred, where we announced, the mercenaries that will be coming to Vessel of Hatred, along with how that system works with like reinforcements. It's like a new take of how mercenaries play within Diablo, especially since mercenaries has such a storied history within the franchise itself. And of course, we also talked about the Cuirass Undercity and the Dark Citadel, along with the Party Finder feature that players will be able to actually partake in with Vessel of Hatred and use that for Dark Citadel and other features within the game. We do actually have a blog up on Diablo4.com that does do a good deep dive across all of those specific items, so you guys can actually check that out. But we have a packed agenda today. This will be a long one, so we hope that everyone will sit down and grab a snack and join us as we talk about some pretty large systemic changes that will be coming with Diablo 4, along with some new stuff that we'll be sharing as well that will also be coming with Diablo 4. So we're going to start off with some progression updates. We're going to move off into some class and balance changes, along with some quality of life updates, and then we'll kind of cap it off with a cool new announcement that will be coming with Vessel of Hatred. So Aislinn, Colin, I know you guys want to jump into some of these big progression changes that you guys were talking about last week, so take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. And I'm sure everyone has no idea what the big surprise is at the end.
None whatsoever.
So right. Let's jump into the progression. So when we launched the game, we had a sort of vision for the game that we felt like was really fun to play through once, where you'd sort of traverse through these world tiers and you'd be gaining new sacred items rarely, and then you'd be getting ancestral items when hopping into World Tier 4. And as we played the game more and more, and as we've gotten feedback, that necessarily hasn't really been super fun. So we've sped up a lot of the progression to sort of get you into that space that where you feel powerful, where you have autonomy over your choice in terms of difficulty and challenge and reward. Diablo is all about that progression, right? And sort of blasting and feeling efficient. So we wanted to take a step back after looking at itemization. We've added a ton of itemization progression that we think is feeling pretty good. There's a lot of ways to customize your character. There's a lot of ways to progress your itemization. And we wanted to look at other aspects of the game. So that came in the form of like, what hasn't aged super well? What are the things that we really enjoy and we see that you all enjoy? And doubling down on that. So two of those things are difficulty and overall just character progression from your paragons, your glyphs, etc. And sort of taken the approach of like really doubling down and embracing again what has been really fun, right? Blasting, being efficient, having control over your challenge and reward, right? Profane Mind Cages is awesome when you can stack it to 3 and you can hop into those Hell Tides and just start getting tons of experience and reward for pushing that challenge. Key dungeons like Nightmare Dungeons, Infernal Hordes, really pretty much every endgame in the system at this point has a tiering system associated with it, and we think that's like pretty indicative of like what has been fun, and we want to embrace that. And part of that is that idea of I can push really hard to get more efficiency. Part of that's conquering milestones, right? It's really good. It's a ton of fun to hop into World Tier 3 early. I think I hopped in at level 25 in the latest release just to see if I could do it, and it was a ton of fun. And it's sort of all about embracing that gaining power in multiple ways, feeling super powerful. And then another thing that we really wanted to look at in terms of making this better is alting. We made a change to make it so that the mythic uniques could be equipped at level 35, and if you've done that, it's a really badass experience.
Hey guys, Paragon levels being shared between all your characters.
Slap your grandfather on him, and you just blast through the leveling experience, and it's a ton of fun. That being said, we've added tons of sort of power to the equation, and we wanted to make sure that we also gave you more autonomy to sort of challenge yourself with all that new power, and we're adding a ton of new power in the expansion as well. So to cover it again, right, we want to look at expanding the progression in other areas of the game come patch 2.0. So with that, Aislinn actually has a bunch of exciting changes to talk about here.
I do. Thank you, Colin. Okay, everyone, I want you to put on your thinking caps because we have a lot of details to cover. So buckle up. We, in fact, have a topic screen here because there's so many things regarding progression that we're going to be talking about today. So the way that we're approaching this presentation is we're basically going to be bringing you through what a character's journey would actually look like. You know, starting by talking about the character journey and then talking about some difficulty tier changes that are coming, and then going deeper into, you know, how you're going to be gaining more rewards from those said difficulty tiers. So yeah, without further ado, let's simply jump in and get started with the character journey. Okay, so some changes coming to how you're going to be leveling up. There's going to be a level adjustment, first of all, coming to patch 2.0. Right now in the live game, you go from character level 1 to 50. Those are your skill point levels. And then every level after 50 is a Paragon level where you're earning 4 Paragon points per Paragon
New max level is 60.
We're going to be splitting those out in patch 2.0. And so you're going to earn Paragon points, which are going to be separate from your character level. Levels 1 to 50 represent those character levels. And there's also going to be a new max character level, quote unquote, of level 60. And that means that you are going to be earning 10 more skill points from what you had been earning pre-patch 2.0. There's also going to be a reimagined pace to the leveling journey. So we have a lot of new difficulty tiers that are being added to the game. More on that soon. But effectively, lower difficulty tiers are going to be offering you a slower pace if you're a newer player, you just want a very casual, chill experience. But you're going to be able to bump it up if you want to. Like if you're engaging with tempering, you're engaging with all these systems that are making your character stronger,
there's more.
And you want something to test that against, we are aiming to give that to you. And these difficulty tiers are going to be offering you improved efficiency, improved rewards, and the goal is to improve your pace if you can blast through these difficulties.
Yeah, this is a lot like the mine cages, right? Like we sort of heard, we heard you like mine cages, so we put it.
This makes a difference.
From whispers to Helltide,
because you can essentially choose how hard you want it.
Like doing dungeons,
right?
And really,
how hard do you want it?
It's sort of like giving players that choice to do what they want, and it's not just Helltide now that can push that difficulty.
You could play hardcore normal.
Totally.
You could play hardcore
like we were just playing on the development team.
Expert.
We were playing in Helltides and playing with mine cages, and we were like, "This is great." Like I want to just be able to do this, or like have this option available to me, like basically whenever I'm playing. So that's a big part of these changes. Moving on here to the number adjustments. So as a lot of you guys found in footage, yes, there is a pretty substantial number adjustment. So a big part of this is we want to make sure that there's room for growth. And we're adding a lot of player power in patch 2.0 and Vessel of Hatred. And we want to make sure that numbers don't get so crazy that we cannot even fathom them, right? And so a big part of this is giving us a good starting point in patch 2.0 where we can afford to grow numbers.
Later we'll end up with a billion again.
Yeah.
But at least
I think it's really important, to have numbers that are like when you're like doing damage numbers to see ones that are meaningful to you, right? If you're increasing your damage like even 10x, but it's taking it from like an 8 or 9 digit number to a 10 digit number, it's almost impossible to see that kind of growth in player power. So with numbers that are more readable on screen, that A makes it much more obvious when you're getting more powerful, and just makes the game as a whole easier to kind of comprehend.
10% more damage on 100. It's better than 10% more damage on a billion.
It's important to note
right?
that
Because
this
you don't
is
feel it
relative.
anymore.
In that we're not slowing you down in any way. This is purely sort of one of those adjustments that we're making to ensure that you can have more growth in the end game. We're not at the top end nerfing things like crit chance or CDR. Really, this is all about having actually, like sort of what we set out to do when we launched the game, is have more grounded numbers for longer. That's not to say that you aren't going to get insane in the deep end game, right?
Yeah, you're still going to have a lot of power to game. And yeah, finally, just going back to this first bullet here on this slide, we're going to talk more about Paragon later, but for now we're going to focus on some other things. So sit tight. Okay, let's talk about how monsters are changing. So we've streamlined monster health and damage in a pretty big way. We took a look at how monsters gain health and how they gain damage over different difficulty tiers. And we've really like honed in and kind of universalized our approach to how they're gaining power throughout your character experience.
No more fighting level 200 monsters.
And this is going to be applying to all
Chad.
monster types. Normal monsters, minions, which are elites' little buddies, elites themselves, and of course bosses. And all of these monsters now have health that's relative to their normal monster counterpart on any given like difficulty tier. And what this does is it really helps smooth difficulty progression and the difficulty
plan is to not spend
any
10 minutes beating a boss
currently in.
when you take 2 seconds for a normal monster.
Secondly, we have some changes to monster scaling. So monsters are going to scale to a pit tier, and we're going to talk more about that as well pretty soon too. So sit tight.
The first part doesn't
the
make
big
sense
thing
yet.
here is that monsters
But
are
wait for it.
always going to match the player level now. So on live, we have a world where monsters can be, 100 levels offset of you and anywhere in between. And that can be fairly hard to understand. And so a big part of this pass is kind of removing that element of the game so that we can focus on what difficulty we're currently in and using that as the judge of how hard or how easy or wherever in between the content you're currently in is.
Reduce instances
finally,
of getting one shot.
We have some pretty cool combat tuning changes. So we've taken a lot of looks at, like the moment-to-moment combat pacing in the game. And monster mechanics across the board have been adjusted to really hone in on player momentum. You're here to slaughter demons. We want you to move quickly through the game. And we don't necessarily want monsters to be slowing you down, especially normal monsters. And to achieve this, we've reduced instances of getting one shot like out of nowhere. And we've also adjusted boss HP so that they're not quite as grindy after you're moving in from, after blasting down AoE packs in the pit, for example.
Yeah, it was definitely a pain point. Oh, great call.
Go ahead, Charles.
Just saying, right, that's always been the pain point in the pit so far is like, hey, you're really strong, you blast through most of the dungeon, and then you get up to the boss, and the boss takes, 5 minutes or more. That's just like such a slog. So we're definitely making sure it's a more consistent experience in a given difficulty.
They're not making it easier, though. Don't mistake this, chat.
More consistent experience
okay?
across boss and other portions of the game.
More consistent experience. That doesn't mean
we've
it's
already
just
taken a lot
easier.
of steps towards this. In one of the previous seasons, we set it so that you wouldn't get armor cap penalties as the monsters leveled higher than you, right? So this is really just sort of consolidating a lot of the I'm gonna get shit for the Blizzard math on the back end to make sure that like a lot of the things are really being reworked on the back end to address the problems we see on live with the crazy exponential scaling of boss health from like 4 different multipliers and the crazy exponential damage.
Max monster level 60 because max level is 60.
The corpse bow, of course, dying in one shot from off screen. A lot of those things should be much more consistent as you're climbing through those difficulty tiers, which we're going to talk more about in the future or in this presentation.
Very soon, in fact. Like right now.
Okay, now it gets interesting, Chan. I hope they tell you everything.
Let's talk about it. So this is our beautiful Blizzard illustration, if you will, of current day difficulty. Art by Colin. Thank you very much.
Got to call out Colin. Yeah.
Oh, no.
We've got the
art for this.
That's currently how the game is.
This is art. What are you talking about?
1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah,
1 to
this is
100,
beautiful.
and then pit. Right?
modern art. You can see we have the big bone boss, very, very sad at the current state of things up there. So what this is basically illustrating is that there are basically brackets right now on live where various content is relevant. You have world bosses that stay relevant for a certain amount of time. You have Helltide that stays relevant, maybe a little bit longer than world bosses do. And then you have world tiers 1 and 2. Then you have world tier 3, which is, very sad. Sorry, world tier 3.
Yeah.
And then world tier 4.
Magnifying glass, you can see it.
I mean, the
maybe
graphic
if
is
you look
somewhat
really
accurate
closely, you can see how long it takes.
No
to go
world
through
tier 3, right?
and
Helltides
then
get
world tier 4,
irrelevant.
which has
World
like a
bosses
bit
get
of a tail, but
irrelevant.
still pretty short.
And then technically
And
only
then
the
we
pit at the end.
compare it to like where our character's power currently exists, which is, you've got level 1 to 100, and then of course your journey throughout all of the pit tiers. And basically what this is illustrating is a lot of these content types fall off. World bosses don't stay relevant forever.
Right?
Helltide
Only
doesn't
pit
stay
progression,
relevant
that's
forever.
it.
The world tiers you're living on in the open world don't stay relevant. And eventually it simply becomes about running the pit. And that's the place where you can judge your character's strength. We don't necessarily want the game to work that way. We want a lot of activities to stay fun and interesting and engaging for as long as possible. And so to accomplish that,
Nightmare
we've got
feels irrelevant.
some pretty big
Exactly,
changes
sir.
coming
They
to
do.
difficulty tiers. So let's dive into the meat and
Torment
potatoes
1, 2,
of
3, and
this.
4.
Talking
Torment
about
levels.
pit arbitration.
8 tiers in total, Chad.
That's just a fancy way of basically saying that the pit is going to be something behind the scenes that's setting the pace of all difficulty in the game across all content types. So pit tiers are going to match difficulty tiers. There's going to be 5 pit tiers per standard difficulty, which is just encapsulating 4 new world tiers pre-level 60, which
So
are
essentially
normal,
from
hard,
pit
expert,
20
and
on,
penitent.
you can
And then there will
enter
be 15
Torment
pit
1.
tiers per torment difficulty.
New
There are
world
going to
tier.
be 4 torment difficulty tiers,
Okay.
1, 2, 3, and 4. Difficulty tiers are going to derive monster health, damage, and intensity from the pit tier that is associated with that difficulty tier. And I know that's a little complicated, but we're going to have some supporting stuff to show what this means a little better pretty soon. And I do want to call out intensity here. Colin, do you want to talk about monster intensity raising between difficulty tiers?
Yeah, so intensity is something we played around with in the base game, and it's sprinkled out throughout the game. But what intensity is it's a backend system that controls monster aggressiveness as well as monster intelligence. So by aggressiveness, it's things like they attack faster, they have lower cooldowns, they move faster. And then intelligence is they predict your movement more, they'll face you more. So if it has a big swing, it's actually going to try and track you a little bit more accurately. So it's not just the health and damage
Elden
that's
Ring
going
boss
up through
AI.
these difficulty tiers. The monsters are actually becoming a little bit more
We have to
dynamic
go
and
software test
fast-paced.
this out. You should.
We think that feels pretty good, especially when it's sort of scaling through the new difficulty system that we have.
Yeah, this is
totally.
something we do have on the live game, but in the new patch 2.0, you're really going to feel that difference. Currently, you feel a little bit of difference in between the different world tiers, and that's just going to be magnified. And your moment-to-moment combat it's not just going to be higher numbers. The moment-to-moment will feel
And
different
every single
and harder
torment tier
at these higher
reduces
torment
your
difficulties.
resistances, so you gotta keep them up all the
They're going
time.
to become bigger jerks as you ascend difficulties. All right, so let's talk about difficulty gating. So this is basically how people are going to be moving through these different difficulty tiers. So the pit is going to unlock once you hit character level 60, which is the new maximum character level in patch 2.0. So pit tiers associated with standard difficulties are going to unlock immediately, which is pit tiers 1 through 20. You're going to be able to challenge all of those immediately once you're max level. And you're going to need to beat pit tier 20 to unlock the first torment tier.
So you can't
Once
be
you
in
beat
Torment
pit tier
1
20, you're
unless you
allowed
beat
to
it.
go into the
You can't be in
overworld
Torment 2 unless you
on
beat
Torment
pit
1.
35.
And then, as we see here, there are 15 pit tiers per torment difficulties. So to unlock Torment 2, you would then need to progress through the pit and beat pit tier 35, at which point you can now go into
Are they raising the
Torment
gear power
2
cap?
in
No,
all
it's going to
other
be different,
activities,
NJ.
so on and so forth.
Torment 2 is
So
where you
this
get
is
greater
basically
affixes.
creating
Before
a-
Torment 2, no greater
Sorry,
affixes.
go ahead, Colin.
Oh, I was just going to jump in and say, like, what's kind of interesting is, like, Torment 1 you can think about as World Tier 3 today. And what we're sort of doing is essentially saying, now that level cap is 60, you actually can find some of the best items in the game very early, right? Imagine if you were able to just start finding the best items in the game in World Tier 3. That's really sort of what we're talking about here. We're really speeding up when you can actually get to the end game, where we've added things like the pit, we've added things like nightmare dungeons and more end game activities for you to engage with, and item modification systems. So it really is sort of getting you into the fun faster, which also makes alting.
Can you pull a friend to the pits, or
right?
do they have to beat it solo? Technically, you can pull a friend, Tig.
All right,
but you're
I'm
not
in
doing them a
end game.
favor.
I'm going to start looking for awesome items. I'm going to start modifying my
Because they don't have the gear,
so we think that like
and the
sort of,
resistance sucks, they're just going to get
represents a pretty
slaughtered
substantial
consistently.
change to how you play the game.
Oh,
So
yeah,
for
absolutely.
us wondering why we kind of built it around the pit, and why we associated difficulty with the pit. How do y'all think about that?
You need to make him way louder.
Yeah, so right now the pit is a fantastic razor to judge your character against. And I think that this overhaul is effectively turning the pit into the game's backbone, to use kind of a gruesome term, but we're Diablo, so whatever.
Do you know this, or are you good at
turning the
guessing?
pit into the
I'm
game's
fantastic
backbone
at
of, like,
guessing,
difficulty.
Chobi.
And all
10 out
other
of 10.
difficulties is kind of derived from that. And it gives us a very predictable and understandable pace for you to experience all other activities in the game based on the pit.
So the pit is, by the way, now the new Nightmare Dungeons, essentially.
Yeah, that razor is great for pushing difficulty, right? You think about how part of what's really fun, again, about Diablo is that feeling of progression and that feeling of becoming powerful, then taking on a big-ass demon, killing it, getting awesome loot. And what the pit is going to do is you're going to push that difficulty, then unlock new torment tiers, which is going to unlock more efficiency for you. And you can sort of think about it as like we've added not just a world tier 5, but a world tier 5 and 6 as part of this torment system. And it's something we can continue to sort of evaluate
but within a Nightmare Dungeons,
as characters become more powerful and we add new ways
masterworking materials
sort of play through the system.
Yeah, and I think it's also a lot about consistency across content, right? Currently, in the live game, we've got a lot of different
just swap it up.
Levels of different types of things, right? You've got Nightmare Dungeon keys, you've got pit levels, you've got Infernal Horde tiers, and we just kind of realized that, hey, the pit is something that we have, really good delineation between the different levels. So you've got a wide spread of different tiers for that, and that's something we can kind of peg difficulty against across the whole game to make a more consistent experience. When you're in a certain difficulty tier, you're just going to get a more consistent experience.
The way how pit works is different. Pit is bound to torment tiers now, and higher torment tiers is more loot.
You're gonna know
so if you do a pit 35, you get 200% better loot than a pit 34.
But right now on the live game, you go into a pit tier 50 and you're like, okay, it's pit tier 50 difficulty. And then you go into a Nightmare Dungeon tier 50 and it's a totally different difficulty. And then you go into an Infernal Hordes tier 8 and you're like, wait a minute, this is extremely hard compared to these other ones. They're just not similar, right? And so we want to create a more level playing field so that difficulty is easier to understand.
Loot filter armory, no loot filter, no armory.
It's like a common language and shared experience for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. Yeah, that's definitely a benefit, and it's also, in some sense, leveling up all the activities. Like, I know that there's some people who really enjoy Whispers, for example, and Whispers just falls off. Like, if you're doing the pit and you're level 100, you're level 90 in the pit, like, Whispers are terrible, right? Like, you're not actually going to run Whispers when you're pushing that deep into the game. But now when sort of things are leveling up with Torment tiers, you have a place to go and sort of choose.
See, the plan is if you're in Torment 4 and you do a Whisper, guys, that a Torment 4 Whisper would give you greater affixes.
Whispers, it's like, your Hell Tides.
Only, for example. But a Torment 1 Whisper,
which is
normal legendary gear.
Infernal Hordes is something that obviously was introduced in Season 5, is coming back, and is a permanent feature within the game, and is also going up with the rest of the content.
And you can now do Infernal Hordes on Torment too.
All right. So let's talk a little more about the details of difficulty tiers. So on the right-hand side here, you can see this table. It's basically showing off the associated pit tier with any given difficulty tier. So normal simply starts on 1, and then like we saw before, it goes up by 5 each time until you get to Torment tiers, at which point it goes up by 15 each time. So Torment 4 lands on 65, Torment 1 starts on 20. And in light of this, we have changed the highest pit tier to be 100, down from 200. And this doesn't mean that the pit tier 100 is going to be the same difficulty as it is on live. It's going to be harder. So each pit tier you're going up is going to be harder than it was before.
And yes, your world tier can then be Torment 4. Your world tier can be Torment 3. Okay.
And what that means is your things like Infernal Hordes or Nightmare Dungeons.
Nightmare Dungeons can be Torment 4.
The keys to enter those activities are now going to follow the current difficulty tier that you're on. So if I have an Infernal Horde key and I'm on Torment 3 and I use it, I'm going to go into a Torment 3 difficulty Infernal Horde. And the same is true for
So you can scale your whole world difficulty as you want for every activity.
Change because again, coming back to all these things we've talked about, where it just kind of makes things easier. Just makes life cool, right? Easier.
You want to have it fucking hard? Fucking hard. Maximum loot.
On live right now, you get a bunch of sacred, Nightmare Dungeon keys, and I'm sure everyone runs a ton of World Tier 3 Nightmare Dungeons, right? You definitely don't just pop in to get a sacred weapon, but what I'm getting at is a lot of those keys just end up getting salvaged, and now when all keys can sort of carry weight through various Torment tiers, getting a Nightmare key.
If you're in Torment 2, things are Torment 2 hard.
Well, do I keep it or do I run it now? Because if I keep it, I can.
If you're in Torment 3, things are Torment 3 hard.
It's really about giving the players that choice on when do they want to run this content. We're not just going to invalidate that key and say, oh, in Torment 2, you need to find a new key to do this thing. So I think it's definitely making key management a lot easier and more fluid as well. One thing on the pit, Hazelin, that I think is really interesting is we definitely have rescaled the pit. Tier 100 is sort of like our 200.
You don't have to wait for 8th October. We're getting a PDR.
But I think
next
that's
week.
something that
We're in 2 weeks.
we definitely want to keep an eye out on PTR. We don't have any problems with increasing the amount of pit tiers. Like, this is something we can definitely revisit if we see in PTR that you all are insane, which is probably going to happen, and you beat tier 100. We really like that it's a razor and measuring stick, and we don't want to take that away from players. So that's something that we want to get PTR feedback, and we could really use your help in breaking that system and seeing how far you can push it.
Oh yeah, that's a great point. And like we've said on this stream, there are going to be a lot of new player power opportunities coming, and so yeah, please show us what you got.
The Horde Scrolls become obsolete. Yes, you don't need the Horde Scrolls anymore. They're removing this.
Okay, so let's talk about
which is good,
let's
because
just
they were
dive a
useless
little more
already.
into the details. I think we went over a lot of this stuff already, but we can kind of go through this slide here. So yeah, all content in the game exists within an expanded difficulty tier selection, like we were talking about. I think an important thing to call out here is that, for example, Penitent is, if you're comparing it just to like kind of understand what it's going to look like relative to live right now, Penitent's kind of going to end up being like World Tier 2 if you added 45 monster levels on top of it. And that's intended to kind of be the upper echelon of like pre-max
level me on about what they're going to announce. Only
character
cool things?
leveling. So if you
PTR
really want
PC.
to amp up the difficulty to as hard as you can make it, like going on to Penitent.
So you can essentially start on Expert, guys.
Okay? And this is just a lovely
Not on Penitent,
little
but you can start
visual
on Expert.
aid. We've got some cool new icons for these difficulty tiers. Normal, hard, Expert, and Penitent. It gets harder as you keep going. Okay, so yeah, and we really want this to be like opt-in, not progression locked. And so the vanilla Diablo 4 difficulty tiers kind of operated as progression tiers, right? And what I mean by progression tiers is the moment you get to World Tier 3, as Colin was saying, like you unlock sacred items, maybe you go into a dungeon so you can find a sacred weapon. And these things unlock so quickly and they drop so frequently that you kind of just got this huge burst of power, and you never really got to feel that power. And we want to make sure that you are like
during the game,
feeling
yes.
each upgrade you get in the game.
You feel like this is too hard?
Really
just
punchy.
drop from Torment 2 to Torment 1. You don't like Expert,
and we really
you don't
want
like hard, go to normal.
To be player
you struggle
guided.
to beat a boss,
we want you
drop
to
it.
be able to make your own decisions on when you're moving on to the next one
Try again.
and what's the right pace for you. And of course, these new difficulty tiers are going to give you improving rewards. You're going to find more gold, more experience, and you're going to have more loot efficiency per difficulty tier. So the higher difficulty tier you can fight the game on, the more efficient your experience is going to be.
So we're talking about Torment 4. You're only going to find
I think that's really
items, more or less, right?
Good go.
What happened to
I
Nightmare
was just saying that's really like
they scale
what I view
World
as
Tier
the
2.
differentiating factor between what
so it's a
current
Torment
V4
4
is
Nightmare Dungeon.
and in the new patch
Torment
2.0
3 Nightmare Dungeon.
If you enter Torment 1, you can find the best item in Torment 1. You could complete your character and get full best in slot and everything. It's just going to take a while, right? It's going to be less efficient. You're going to be getting less loot. And whereas in the live game right now, right, you just can't find the best things in World Tier 3. You are kind of obligated to go to that World Tier 4. And now, if you're able to clear higher torments with efficiency, that's just going to be the best option for you to find the gear more efficiently. But you aren't forced into Torment 4 to find the best items.
No capstones anymore, only pits.
Yeah, that's something I've really liked about it is that we get to start the end game a lot earlier with Torment, right? Because there's nothing that you're excluded
from. You have to imagine
from.
higher Torment tiers is like more Magic
you
Find.
Can't find by Torment
right?
1.
Torment 2,
and so
double the drop rate.
You get to really start to test your build
Torment
after
3 more.
It's kind of gotten some real optimization, I think, much earlier into the journey.
It's Magic Find without calling it Magic Find.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Jeevan. And like a great example of that is what we're doing with the ladder bosses or the lair bosses. All of those unlock in Torment 1. The cost to summon them is static. It remains the same throughout all the Torment tiers. And what that means is if you can beat it on a higher Torment tier, you're going to get way more uniques. So you get a handful of uniques starting in Torment 1. way more uniques, and obviously
Imagine
Torment
you get like
4,
one
but the
unique Torment
cost,
1, and
because
then if you
remains
beat it on
static, we're
Torment
not
4,
gonna
you're
ask
gonna
you
get like
get
10
any
uniques from a
extra,
normal
like
boss.
Obsidian Stone. That just means as long as you can kill that Torment 4 boss, you're getting way more efficiency out of the
Right?
boss.
Like
And
no
it
more
really is, like,
tormented
this,
bosses.
it feels amazing
Torment
to sort
bosses.
of progress through those Torment tiers and just unlock way more power opportunity.
Yeah, we don't really have this differentiation of like a regular version of the late game boss, like a regular version of Duriel, and then the tormented echo of Duriel. That's not really a distinction that we have anymore. Whereas like previously it would cost more materials to summon the tormented version, but it would give more rewards. Now it's the same cost across the different torment tiers. It's just if you're able to conquer him on Torment 4, that's where you're gonna get the absolute most bang for your buck in terms
Lamania,
of
it works like this
resources
because
in
it's
to loot
quantity.
out.
Yeah. And I want to just double down on like Torment 1 is where the end game starts now, and just each Torment tier that
Imagine
you're
a Torment 1 boss gives you
making
1
your end game,
Ancestral Legendary.
More
the Torment 4 boss gives you
basically,
4.
because you're going to be getting cooler stuff
Or 8.
more frequently.
Or 12. No more Stygian Stones. Yes, you don't need them.
Okay, so enough about difficulty tiers. Let's move on to some itemization changes. So, item strength. We have what I like to call the item power shuffle happening in patch 2.0. Items with item power above 540 are going to be adjusted to 540. And affix bands in lieu of this, or in addition to this rather, are going to be adjusted as well. So yeah, items at the new character level max they're gonna max out at 750. And that's not actually the highest item power that's going to be in the game, and we'll talk about that more in just a second. But most items you're going to be finding once you hit max character level will
yes,
be
it's a little bit like D3 with the Torment tiers, but different.
And
due to how Diablo 4 works.
Going to be finding
so D3, but not D3.
much better item power items from levels 51 to 59. There's going to be big item power jumps. So once you start leveling your character past those original 50 character levels, you're going to start finding a lot better gear. Okay, so let's take a look at what an ancestral item looks like in patch 2.0. Oh, could we? Yeah, let's
ancestrals are now like primals.
So
you remember primals from D3?
You'll notice here that this item
often.
has 800 item power, which is 50 higher than the max 750 that I was talking about before. You'll also notice on the right-hand side that is the Torment icon. So ancestral items can be found starting on Torment 1. They're going to become more frequent as you ascend.
Not before Torment 1. No
but they're
ancestrals.
Still going to stay pretty rare throughout all Torment levels. You'll also notice that the greater affix on this item is highlighted. That is because now whenever you find an ancestral item, they're always going to have 1 greater affix. They can roll with more, but they will be guaranteed a single one every single time.
So if you find an ancestral now, it's fucking awesome.
So let's dive in more into the details.
Right. Aislinn is part of finding a greater affix on live right now is sometimes it's on life per second. It's like, oh, okay.
So imagine you find normal legendaries, but not ancestrals.
But now when you see an
normal
ancestral
legendaries,
item,
okay, guys?
It's always going to have a greater affix.
And ancestrals is like,
and that ancestral
boom.
eye power bump, the affix bump is going to feel
jackpot.
really good. Even
and that's
if you
why you need
miss
Torment
that
2,
affix,
3,
it's
and
still
4
a huge
to get that
upgrade to your
jackpot more
character if
often.
you haven't found one of these before.
Or you're just going to be legendary.
Yeah, and sometimes, right, you get an item that has multiple greater affixes on live, and it's it's not at 925. It's not at the highest item power, and that's kind of a mixed bag, right? Like, well, it's kind of good, but it's a lower item power. And now things with greater affixes will be definitionally at that highest item power.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about the details here. So sacred items are not going to drop anymore. They're kaput. You're going to be looking at normal items pre-torments, and then you're going to be chasing ancestral items once you are in torment tiers. So yeah, starting in Torment 1, they're going to start to drop. As I said, they're going to become more common as you go up, but again, they're going to stay fairly rare.
So we're talking about rarely,
gonna,
right?
In
Torment
like
1.
The only thing that's dropping. Ancestral items are intended to be where you're finding forever items. So when you find like a really good ancestral weapon or, of whatever slot that you may not have an ancestral item for, that's going to be a big moment. That's going to be an exciting
And only
moment where you're going to get
Ancestrals
something a lot better.
have two masterwork
because they
slots.
also have their own affix
two
band
temporary
as well.
slots.
So these ancestral items are going to have better affixes than their non-ancestral counterparts too. Something to note
Only
is that greater
Ancestrals can be
affixes
masterworked to
only
12.
drop
Normal
on
legendaries
ancestral
is only
items.
4 times.
You're not going to be finding greater affixes on non-ancestrals. So when you see a greater affix drop on the ground, you're going to know that that is an ancestral item. Ancestral items also have 2 tempering slots up
So you're
from
stuck to
1
4 times
on
masterwork.
non-ancestrals. And they're masterworkable up to 12.
Unless
whereas non-ancestrals are masterworkable up to
you find
4.
an ancestral.
And finally, they are going to have higher aspect ranks too. So you're going to find legendary aspects that become better on ancestral items.
And Charles, we actually added a ton of power to legendary aspects to accommodate this. We didn't just sort of readjust where those power bands are coming from.
Yeah, all of the legendary aspects that now scale a little bit further into the ancestral tier, we basically just tacked on 5 new levels kind of on top of the current value. So you're just going to find even more powerful legendary effects than you have currently in the new ancestral tier.
Got an 80% multiplier? It's 100% on an ancestral item.
To find those.
To reward you even more for finding it, right?
Okay. Whew, let's move on to Paragon. So we have some pretty big
for
glyph
legendary
updates
ancestrals
coming
and unique
with patch
ancestrals,
2.0. There's been a significant rework to how many ranks you can earn on any given glyph from 21 to 100, which is a lot of new ranks. But we want to make sure that there's still texture in that system, right? And so because of that, we also have a new a new glyph rarity, legendary. So once you upgrade a glyph to rank 46, it becomes a legendary glyph, which you can see here on the right. This spirit glyph is level 50, so it's past that 46 mark. It's legendary. You're going to get a glyph radius increase at rank 15, which is already in the live game. But you're also going to get another radius increase
2
at
radius
rank
increases,
46
guys.
when it becomes legendary.
2 radius increases.
And this is making them bigger than they could have been previously. So you're going to get more space with your glyphs because of this.
And glyph XP from
and
the
when
pit.
a glyph becomes legendary, it also unlocks a significant bonus, more so than it did before. And you can see that on the bottom of this glyph here. It's got the legendary bonus, increases critical strike damage by 21.6%.
So no more masterwork materials from the pit, but glyph XP now.
This 21.6% is
you need to do the
not
pit
an
to go through the
bonus.
world tiers.
So you're going to be getting a lot of power from that bonus there. Something else I want to bring up is that glyphs are moving to the pit. So you're going to be
that's the second bonus,
your
by the way.
glyphs in
So
the pit.
one bonus for activating,
You're no longer
second
going to be
bonus for
upgrading them in
legendary.
nightmare dungeons. And it's going to be an attempt-based system. So when you finish a pit run, you're going to go to the end, and you're going to be able to have some chances to level up your glyph and increase their ranks. And if you are in a pit that is 10 tiers higher than your current glyph,
this is
you're
weird,
going to have guaranteed
but it makes
success.
sense.
And for every 20 pit tiers that you're that the pit level you're in is higher than your current glyph that you're trying to upgrade, you're going to get bonus ranks so that you can accelerate the process. Do you want to speak more to that, Colin?
Yeah, I think this is a really important note because you could easily look at the rank 100 and be like, oh my god, the grind is even longer. But based on how that upgrade chance works, it's guaranteed as long as you're beating pit tiers that are higher than your glyph. And then how that bonus math ends up playing out is if you're beating, for example, a pit tier 30,
they're going to do that every new season? Nope. This is meant as a new start for Diablo.
You can
Diablo
upgrade
2.0.
a glyph from 1 to 15 in 3 runs. So you think about the difference between today's game and patch 2.0, you're getting those glyphs leveled way faster if you're pushing that difficulty. And what we really wanted to do here was we've heard a ton of feedback around how
at least
the
we
XP
farmed for something
system
guaranteed.
Nightmare Dungeons feels really grindy.
Well set.
It also just doesn't serve
There's a
the
power
Nightmare
chase, which is
Dungeons very
good.
well, right? It's like, how do I get to the end as fast as possible, but nothing in the dungeon matters, right? And that what that does is in the pit, it's all about speed and efficiency, and it sort of embraces that. And we think that that's just really going to accelerate your pit glyph upgrading speed. And the chance
if
you
pit
could
max
sort of,
level is 100 now, do you do plus
really
10 or
clear
plus
with the
20 for
chance. The
upgrading your
chance
glyphs to
based
100?
system is essentially there.
There's a lower
because
chance
it
to
felt
upgrade
really
them later
bad
on,
when
Alex.
it was binary.
So
Like
if
when
your
we said,
glyph is
hey,
already
you
level
need the pit
80
tier, or you
or
need
90,
to beat a pit that's 10 levels higher than
it's
your
just
glyph,
going to be
and if you
harder to
don't,
get
you
it to
nothing.
100 for
That
the
just felt
hardcore
really
grinders.
bad. So the chance is not there to
That's the plan.
increase the grind or slow
Okay.
down progression.
So
it's actually
it's
just
for
there to
like
protect
if you're a
from,
normal
like,
player,
it
you'll never
feeling
have a
just
problem with
terrible to
this.
not get literally
If you're a
anything
hardcore
from that
grinder,
grind.
at the very end,
So again, to be
it
clear,
will
it's
just
100%
become more
chance as
grindy.
long as you're pushing difficulty.
So
We
that's
think
a
that
bit
this
the
fits
idea behind
content
it,
a lot
to
better.
give
We've
you a
heard ton
power
of
chase for the
feedback
hardcore
around, like,
grinders,
the pit
but the
rewards
casual
feeling
player will never
lackluster, and
feel
there's not really a reason
stopped.
to push difficulty. You
Which
you
is
sort
okay.
of just want to hone in on like 90 or 101, depending on where you're
But
at
don't
in
worry,
terms
it's not
of your
going to
progression
fuck
journey
you
on
over.
live.
So the system
This
is not meant to
system
fuck
really
you over.
encourages you
It's
to
not going
push
to
and
take
gives you
forever.
a
No.
tangible reward every single time.
It's not like you go down to a 20%
Yeah,
chance to
and I think
upgrade.
it's important that there's the consistency of like the communication between, right? So, hey, my
Diminishing
glyphs
returns.
are
Yes,
currently
exactly,
level
as it should
50.
be.
Well, what kind of pit tier should I be approaching to upgrade these? Well, somewhere in the range of 50 to 60, right? You just a little bit higher so that you can keep pushing that harder content. And also, if you have a glyph
Yeah,
down at
everyone
level
should
1,
be able to
because
get the
maybe
legendary glyph
you
exactly
haven't
hard.
paid
Well put.
attention to that glyph,
40/50
it's
is
going to
easy.
level up much faster if you are already you've already proven yourself, proven that you can hang in pit tier 50, for instance. You're going to level those up very quickly.
You have to
I think what's
understand
also
that
cool is
Paragon
if
is
you have
now
a
also
build that
shared
you
between
feel isn't
characters.
doing as well as you go up in Torment. It makes it a lot easier to kind of snap something back in and catch up faster.
Paragon levels.
Yeah, the
I'm
further
not
you
sure if
progress,
glyphs are
the
shared
easier it
between
is
characters.
to level those
So
up.
that's a pit cleared?
So here we have a video basically just showing off what the new UI looks like for upgrading a glyph in patch 2.0. So you can see that it's showing you the current pit level you're on, the current success chance to get a rank up.
So
And
that's
something
pit
else I want
45
to call
and
out
a
is
level
that
45 glyph.
when you are,
So you have a 55%
oh yes, right.
chance.
So this is rank 45 to 46 explicitly, which is the moment where you are increasing a glyph from rare to legendary.
But if you
And
were
something
in a
important to
level
note about that is that it does
65 pit,
cost
it was a
a
100%
fairly
chance.
significant amount of gem fragments as well, but it's giving you that increased radius size and the new multiplicative legendary bonus, which is pretty sick. And
So
here
look
we
at
have
that,
an
level
example
21
of
and
showing how the
46. Look at the
gets
radius
even bigger in
size.
patch 2.0. I want to call out here that the midpoint says level 21. That is not correct. It is level 15 where the radius increases. But yeah, previously there was only one radius increase. Now with legendary glyphs at rank 46, there is a second radius increase.
This is October,
Okay.
8th October.
So let's talk about some more stuff related to Paragon. We have realm partitioning for Paragon now, and this is kind of getting into alting that Colin was talking about.
Now it gets important.
We have realm-based Paragon points now. So your Paragon points are going to be shared across an entire realm. And remember that what a realm is like either seasonal softcore or seasonal hardcore or the same for eternal. Those are realms. And these Paragon points are
all
going to
your
stay
softcore characters
on a
have instantly 300 Paragon points.
And what that means is that, if you have, let's say,
if you have it leveled
150
up.
Paragon points on a realm, those Paragon points will remain inactive on any character.
So if you make a new level 60 character,
but once you hit
Paragon
level
points.
60 on that character, they will have those 150 Paragon points. And it's also important to note that any Paragon points you earn on any of your characters in that realm are going to be shared among all characters in that realm. So if you earn 25 or 50 Paragon points on one character and then hop over to your alt, you're going to have 25 or 50 more Paragon points to spend on that character too. And in addition to this change, we have a pretty hefty Paragon level increase. So right now the current max besides Renown and Altar of Lilith bonuses is 200, and we're increasing that up to 300, which is going to give you a lot more levels to chase throughout any given season.
But once you get them, they're stuck, right? They're not going away again.
Okay, and in light of these changes coming to Paragon, we've made some adjustments to the way that boards work as well. So because we're offering so much more power with legendary glyphs, and they mean so much more to your build, we're looking to set a maximum for the number of Paragon boards that you can equip at any given time. And this is also because, on live right now, the
5
best
Paragon
strategy
boards,
is to
guys,
aim for
not
as
more.
many glyph slots as possible.
Okay,
You just go off.
5 Paragon boards in
you
total.
oftentimes ignore whatever legendary node bonus you're getting, just for the glyph slot.
Not 8, not 9.
And we want to make sure that
right?
you're really focusing
choose 5.
on these legendary nodes and that you're focusing on these really cool legendary glyphs that you're getting.
And we're getting a new board.
And really think about those choices instead of gunning for like every single glyph, for example.
Including the starter, they might change the starter to be more valuable. Because the starter kind of
I was just
right
going to
now.
say this really helps complement the additional 100 more levels. Like
So
we've
yes,
heard
4
a lot
plus
of
starter, but starter
feedback
might
that it
be
feels
changed
really
to
flat
not be
once
like
you
the
hit
current
100,
starter.
That there's
Okay?
just no more progression.
Maybe the starter
you don't really
includes a
need to kill
legendary
any of the
node now.
monsters anymore unless it's explicitly to get the
Ripsword
drop
with
off
some
of
boards,
them.
every class,
And
sir, but don't worry.
Kind of feels bad, right? Like I'm walking through this dungeon and like I get literally nothing out of killing these monsters. So with the board limit, we've packed a ton of power,
expansion,
additional
guys.
Paragon levels to grind, a ton of
So
power
8th of
with
October
legendary
plus
glyphs.
PDR next
But
week.
it also creates a situation where once you're you've achieved all those different things, you don't feel so bad necessarily around not getting to that Paragon level 300.
Necro movement speed
At a
buried
certain
board,
point, you
please.
start to really just sort of
Maybe a skill
really
for that,
need to hone in on your build, and those extra Paragon points are going to start providing you more of a show of sort of how badass you are, and give you incremental progress that's a little bit less sort of demanding that you must grind through all of this content to unlock every part of your Paragon board.
Yeah,
and something I'm pretty excited about this is that, sometimes on live it can feel like my goal is to get a new Paragon board, and as soon as I achieve that, my goal is to get a new Paragon board and get off the one I just unlocked. I think this change really lets me kind of explore the boards and think about what specific route optimizations I want to take, and it lets me personalize it a little more, which I'm a pretty big fan of.
Well, I know we have we just went through a ton of content right here with all the changes that are coming for progression to Paragon to itemization. I know it was a lot for people to hear. We will actually have a blog immediately up after the stream that will kind of also explain a little bit more of this to players, so that they can actually get a understanding in their own cadence of like what is going to be changing with patch 2.0 for Diablo 4 in regards to some of the progression items. I know, Colin, we're seeing a lot in chat of like, people are noting like, hey, this feels a little D3-ish in ways. I don't know if you wanted to chat or like comment on that a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm happy to. It's definitely familiar, right? So we thought a lot about like what is the right way to address the player feedback we've gotten a bunch of feedback around like World Tier 5, World Tier 6, World Tier 7, right? I want to be able to level up the challenge in the game. I want to be able to get more efficiency. And we wanted to do it in a way that was leaning into what we saw you all were really resonating with, which is getting to the end game faster. And we felt like, okay, well, we could add a World Tier 5 and add
taking the D3 feature into 4 a bit copy paste.
The level cap.
Not really.
But that would
Night
mean
Eyes.
you would just need to grind
some
more to get to that
elements
point
of D3.
where you're finding your
Yes.
forever items, doing item modification. And
Good
we could add
elements,
a World Tier 6,
but they're still keeping it
ancestral,
D4,
right? And it just sort of
which is the smart way
made
of
us
doing it.
reevaluate what is important, and it's
Take what's good,
what's important to us
keep
is
what's
getting
good,
people into the end
improve.
game, getting people finding their forever items, smashing monsters, getting
I mean,
more
imagine
powerful
taking
sort
bad
of
features.
item modification and
Hey,
efficiency.
Kusel, good to see you.
So that was part of it, and then the other part of it, I'd say, is I think Diablo 4 more than any Diablo has had a ton of item customization and power along the leveling journey, which really makes the leveling progression feel different, right? Like if you're tempering, if you're imbuing aspects, if you're really min-maxing your reward scheme, you can really push difficulty tiers early. If you played D3, hard is really the only real difficulty, right? But because we have so many different ways to grow your power, we think that represents a pretty fun challenge of like, how do I take all these pieces and really push as early as I can to get to that max level faster? And one more thing that's really important to note is the jumps between torments are pretty enormous. We don't expect you to sort of play it like today's D3, where you essentially log in, get your Hadrig set, and hop right into Torment 16. The jumps are actually pretty enormous between Torment 1 and 2, and it creates this really fun
Torment 2 is going to
progression
kick your
through
butt
those Torment
if you're not
tiers, and it
prepared for
feels
it.
like a
Torment
meaningful
3 is going to
step
tear you a
forward when
new
get
one,
into
and Torment 4 is going to
and then
spit in your
Torment
throat.
3. We're hoping this doesn't necessarily feel like a
As it should.
2-hour sort of journey through the Torment tiers, and then now you're in Torment 4, and that's how you play the rest of the game.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and also one thing I'll add is, shouts to Twitch chat, everything that you say, hey, you like what we're doing, big dub. We appreciate it. Much love for the response. Also, all the people in Twitch chat who are like, I don't like this. This isn't working for me. Much appreciation the same. We're looking at what you're saying, we're thinking about it, and we're going to try to incorporate it and make the game better. And I think it's interesting. I'm seeing the sort of Diablo 3 references, and it's like, from our perspective, if something really worked well in Diablo 3, that's more important to us to like do the thing that the players felt like was working for them than anything else, right? The fact that we've done it before in any form, to me, wouldn't stop us from doing the right thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
just doing it the right way.
Yeah,
I just said do it the right way for D4. Sorry, go ahead, Adam.
This is the difficulty of doing everything remote. It feels like it's like a Zoom call, but interrupting each other. And also big shout out to Twitch chat for
makes
calling
sense.
out
Doesn't remind me of Greater Rifts, but I like that. Yes. And Nightmare Dungeons.
I've seen that message a few times already. But so thanks, Aislinn. Thank you, Colin. I know Colin's going to be joining us more on a couple other topics, but we still have a lot to talk about in this stream. And the next thing that we do want to talk about is class changes and everything. And so Charles will be taking us through all the class changes for patch 2.0.
He has a specific role that spoils what he does.
Yeah, awesome. So before we get into some of the slides and details, I just wanted to thank Colin and Aislinn for talking about all the systemic updates that are coming, how we're going to test your character and how you're going to progress through it. But my topic is going to be a bit more about how, what are the exact abilities and skills and new legendary effects and uniques that you're gonna get to take on these awesome challenges that are set up.
That's why he's smiling the whole time, because he gets some.
And also a slight disclaimer: PTR is a very early build for whatever is going to go live on patch 2.0, and some of the assets that we've captured here are also still early on, and so some of the exact numbers or some of the wording may slightly be changed, so definitely refer to the patch notes, which we're going to be publishing right after the stream for the exact details and kind of final, in air quotes, numbers that are going to go on the PTR, and of course it still may be subject to change before we actually launch
is the dude
patch 2.0 live.
It's literally the class.
All right, so with that out of the way, let's start talking about some of the tempering changes that are going to come in patch 2.0. So, tempering is a system that we introduced back in Season of Loot Reborn, Season 4, that gave you a way to really customize your items and kind of make your build your own. And we've received a lot of feedback on the tempering system, and we're really committed to iterating on and making sure that this system is the best it can possibly be going forward. So one of the key points of feedback that we heard was around weapon temper. So these affixes that you get to attach to your weapons, right? Your weapons are your big, important part of your build and your character. And there was a big disparity here, where some affixes that were on weapon tempering were multiplicatively increasing your player power, right? Things like double projectiles or things of that nature, or bash cleaving, which was a multiplicative bonus. And others, not so much, right? You had some other ones that were more duration or size effect. And they just were hard to compare against each other. And so going forward in patch 2.0, we've made all weapon tempering affixes multiplicative damage increases, oftentimes to very specific skills. And to accommodate this, we already had one bonus projectiles, and now we're going to have new affixes that give skills chance to deal double damage, which means if triggers the chance to deal double damage, right? The entire skill is just going to do twice as much damage as before. Every hit of it will deal double damage. It's kind of an all or nothing kind of deal.
Crazy,
and then the chance to hit twice is the chance for any time it deals damage, you just get an extra hit of damage. And this allows you to trigger things like lucky hit procs or anything that counts the number of times you deal damage. That's going to trigger an extra time with the hit twice.
So hit twice is insane, because hit twice means double lucky hit chance.
These are the ones that can also go on your weapons, but can go on other spots as well. These are going to be additive damage increases. And these will often be to broader categories like bonus fire damage or bonus critical strike damage. And whereas the weapon temperers are often talking to more specific skills. And so here we can see an example with the Shadow Augment's Execution, where we had the Sever projectiles chance to cast twice, but now we've got new ones that are chance for Reap to hit twice. So you cast Reap, and every target you hit, there's just a chance to get 2 hits on that target instead of 1. And Corpse Explosion, whenever you cast Corpse Explosion, there is a chance for the entire skill to deal double damage to every target that it hits. Additionally, we've moved those size and duration affixes, which we think are really
so
cool
your
and really
bone storm
interesting ways of
duration is now
modifying your
utility.
skills. We've
On your
moved
chest,
those over to the utility
you can get bone storm
category.
duration.
So they're not directly competing with these
Bone storm
multiplicative
size on
damage
your gloves.
increases. You're not going to feel bad that, oh, I'm missing out on damage just to make my area hit a little bit larger or to have a longer duration on a buff. So there's not as much opportunity cost to investing in those size and duration affixes, which are still really cool ways to customize your character. We just don't want them to compete with damage. And finally, we know that oftentimes tempering leads itself to, hey, I see this list of 5 or even 6 affixes sometimes. We really are going to try to be limiting tempering recipes to at most 4 affixes that could possibly roll on them, just to give you a little bit better odds of actually hitting the one that you care about than the one that you want, and just be a little bit easier to kind of comprehend. And even so, we're trying to set this limit at 4, but oftentimes we're aiming for just 3 on the recipe, depending on how the grouping them together in ways that make sense. So this is an active area that we're working on, really trying to make sure that it's not quite. It's easier for you to get the right affix out of the tempering recipe.
This is a huge change to tempering, just to streamline it more.
All right, next up, we've got changes to ultimate skills.
There is no weight on certain affixes. That is confirmed from the devs directly, Pestilence.
Probably pretty self-explanatory, but just like every other skill in the game, ultimate skills can now be ranked up to rank 5 in the skill tree. And just like every other
ultimate skills gain skill ranks, guys.
Skill rank will increase the damage output of your ultimate skills, but it's also going to give you cooldown reduction on these ultimate skills as well. So oftentimes other skills you just kind of get one or the other, right? Sometimes it's a cooldown reduction, sometimes it's a
you can find a skill in your ulti to really make it.
On ultimate skills, you're going to get kind of the best of both worlds. It's going to be increasing the damage output and reducing the cooldown. And finally, effects that do grant bonus skill ranks on this, such as Harlequin's Crest, the Shaco, that gives plus to all skill ranks. These are only going to apply to ultimate skills.
Yes,
that
Harlequin Crest can now boost your ultis too.
And this is to make sure that you still can only equip one ultimate skill. You can't get plus ranks to all skills and then suddenly have access to 4 ultimate skills. We still don't want that. We still want you to just pick one. But you're just going to be getting, you're going to be able to really juice that ultimate skill up. If you really want to make, Lacerate be really strong, that's going to be.
So if you want to use your ulti, you can finally truly
all right, so those are some of the general updates. Let's now talk about the new content coming for each individual class, starting here with our Barbarian.
Or find new uniques.
All right, so sometimes you're playing as a Barbarian and you experience a problem, right? You are standing here and there is an enemy over there. What to do? Well, a good Barbarian is going to throw their weapon at the enemy over there to kill them at a distance. Right, so now we've got a new skill called Mighty Throw. It's going to hurl your weapon at an enemy. It's going to deal damage on impact. And then it's going to stick in the ground and do some pulses of damage over time. So even if the initial impact doesn't kill them, there's going to be some extra pulses there. Additionally, we've got some upgrades for it, just like our other skills. Enhanced Mighty Throw is going to increase your attack speed while the weapon is out. And then you can either opt in a Fighter's Mighty Throw, which is going to give bonuses to that pulsing damage. It causes your weapon swaps to pulse for more and give you a bit of barrier. Or you can opt into Warrior's Mighty Throw, which is going to dramatically increase the initial impact damage, and it's going to stun enemies on impact. Let's take a video clip of this in action.
Cool, right?
All right.
So you can play Bard. And imagine this with attack speed.
Simple example here with a few enemies. It throws out this ephemeral version of the weapon. Lands, deals a big chunk of damage, and then pulses over time before returning back to you.
I was a huge fan of double throw in Diablo 2, so this is really exciting.
So imagine spamming this now with
it looks sweet too.
Super attack speed,
kind of
and going
bluish,
places.
Yellow, like ancient-y kind of color scheme to it. The VFX looks awesome on it.
So ranged barb is definitely happening in patch 2.0.
For sure. If you want to spec really heavily into this, you're going to be throwing weapons out like crazy. All right, so we've also got some new key passives and new legendary Paragon nodes for every class here.
Thorns key
so
passive.
For Barbarian, we've got Barbed Carapace. This is a key passive, so it's going to increase your thorns based on how much fury you're spending. And whenever you cast a skill with a cooldown, it's going to grant you unhindered for a duration, which allows you to move through enemies. And then enemies that are close to you are going to take are going to take damage from your thorns every second. You're going to kind of pulse damage of your thorns every second. Yep. Now this is really cool. It really enables Thorns Barb, which we had a little bit of support for. But one of the big problems with Thorns is that you really wanted enemies to hit you and hit you quickly. And this gives you another alternative
and
to
yes,
deal
Dust Devil, your
bonus damage
Earthquakes
or
can
to
make Dust
really
Devils. And
pay
you know how
off
many
for building
Earthquakes
up all
you can
that
do,
thorns
right?
with this new key passive.
Tons.
Additionally, we've got a legendary Paragon node, the Force of Nature. Your Earthquakes have a chance to spawn Dust Devils, and your Earthquake damage is going to be increased by your damage against close enemies. So this is really plays into these,
so you can
these
leap
Earthquakes
quake,
and Dust Devil
make
effects,
Dust Devils,
which,
and then
we kind of call
Thorns damage everyone around
internally.
you.
These effects that are not skills that you cast directly, but some of your legendary effects will spawn these Earthquakes and Dust Devils. This is just a new way to really power those up and blend them together in the same build. Additionally, we're adding some new passives to the skill tree. And this has really helped to
damaging an enemy with
give you
basic
a way,
skills
along with
your
ultimate
damage
skill ranks, to spend
by
a lot of those new points
total.
that you're getting by
3%
leveling
for
up
4 seconds, but
from
you can
50
put
to
more
60.
ranks in.
Those new skill points you're getting, we're giving you some new ways to invest those. All right, we also got some new items, of course. We've got the Ugly Bastard Helm, a new unique helm for barbarians. And it makes you so ugly that whenever you are berserking, all of your damage is converted into fire damage. And so that's really interesting. Barbars always had this little bit of like a light fire theme. You had a few different effects that dealt fire damage. And now if you really want to play a fire barb, this is the unique helm for you.
Yep, you can play fire
Also
barb.
playing into that, we've got Aspect of Flaming Rampage, which causes your charge to deal some fire damage, and Aspect of Shuddering Steel, which will cause your Steel Grasp and Iron Maelstrom to do some
all resist is nice,
damage.
right? Dual needed.
All right, moving on to the Druid. The Druid gets a new skill, a new core skill, in fact, called Stone Burst. And this is a core skill that's channeled. It kind of has a very unique kind of input mechanism compared to pretty much any other skill in Diablo 4. And as you're channeling it, you target an area, and as you channel it, the affected area grows in size over about 1 second of channeling. And at any point, you can release the channel, and it's going to deal a big burst of damage to whatever size you kind of landed on there. You could tap it really quickly and just do 1 pulse of damage to a small area, or you can channel up for a little bit longer and hit a much wider area, depending on the exact combat scenario you find yourself in, or how the enemies are distributed on the battlefield here. Of course, we've got our upgrades that increase damage to the enemies hit in the initial radius, so really doubling down on that single target capability of a core skill. And Primal Stone Burst gives you some attack speed, and Raging Stone Burst will dramatically increase the spirit cost, but also give it a ton more damage. So if you have a ton of spirit generation, then that might be the upgrade you look for in Stone Burst. Let's see a video of this in action. All right, so you see it ticks up. There's like 3 different levels, like small, medium, and large. In this one, the Druid kind of held it for a while, but you could release it at any time. And so here you see just kind of rapid firing a lot of quick, small shots, just because they knew that would be enough to clear out the enemies here. And also while you're channeling it, does some pulses of damage to enemies in that area as well.
The channel explosion is so satisfying to blow up just so many monsters.
Yeah, it gets huge,
really feels
and
amazing.
It looks so sweet,
maybe you can turn the core skill into a werebear skill and then use it as a werebear. That's still an option.
These look so beautiful, the new skills.
You don't have to use it as human.
All right, so of course, Druid also has new passives, a new key passive called One with Nature that really empowers companion builds. We've heard a lot that players love playing with companions. They're wolves,
Companion Druid
they're poison creepers, they're ravens, and this is going to be the key passive for you. So all of your companion skills gain an additional companion, and they deal increased damage. And there's also a little bonus, basically, with you gain the passive effect of all of the companion skills. Now, if you're taking this key passive, you're probably taking these companions anyway, but just in case, your build is such that, well, I just want to take, 2 out of the 3, right? I can put wolves and poison creeper on my bar, but, maybe you don't have enough skill slots to put in ravens. You're still going to be able to get the passive.
You'll be surprised by the Necro one. That one is huge. Kind of interesting.
Because we just want you to have tons of these companions, really leading the charge here. We've also got Untamed, a new legendary Paragon node that plays right into this
Casting
One with
a companion
Nature
skill grants 4 ranks to companion skills,
is going to increase the
so
companion.
You can finally play companion
active skill will grant you bonus ranks to all of your companion skills for a time to really buff up the damage of those. Just like before, we've got some new passives coming into the skill tree as well. I think some of these might have some temporary icons on them. So like I said, these were from an early build. Some of the icons or very specific art might be adjusted. So bear with us. This is the nature
of.
By
the way, you deal increased damage after using a defensive skill, just like Sork has it.
All right, moving on to some of the items. Oh no, we've got a video. Oh right, a video of really, really leading a wolf pack here, right? So this includes wolves with the Storm's Companion to turn them into lightning werewolves, and I'm sure there's some other ones here, like aspect of the Stampede is probably involved. You just have, what is that, 7 wolves following you around. You really get to lead the wolf pack with this. This
is the best video in our presentation. Well, actually, no, sorry. This is the second best video in our presentation. You guys will see the best video in our presentation, but yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, for all you werewolf lovers out there, this one is going to be really sweet. I'm really looking forward to playing it.
Howdy, Slate. Good to see you there, brother. Happy you're enjoying it.
All right, so new items. So they've got the Stone of Vehemin. This is a unique totem that's going to empower your Stone Burst, the new core skill. So channeling it is going to grant you some damage reduction, and the final explosion will deal increased damage based on how long you were channeling.
And tons of aspects,
so,
by the way.
This just really encourages you to build it up to that max size and let off a huge explosion. And gives you some damage reduction, so you're kind of standing still for a bit. That's okay. You get a bit of bonus damage reduction. We've got a little bit more legendaries on Druid than the other classes, just because Stone Burst being a core skill. We know that the kind of bar to make a core skill really viable and useful, it does need 30% a good amount of legendary items to cast twice. Support it to really make a full build out of it. So that's why we've added 2 legendaries here for Stone Burst. We've got the aspect of Anticline Burst, which causes Stone Burst to deal increased damage, and if you cast it at or above 100 spirit here, it's going to immediately be at that maximum size. So you don't necessarily need to channel it.
Spam it
as
if
long
you stay at 100
as
spirit and always have max size.
This synergizes really well with the Earth and Might key passive, which gives you full spirit when it triggers. So you can trigger Earth and Might and then immediately get a huge stone burst. We've got aspect of Shattered Defenses, which alters Stone Burst in a rather interesting way. It causes Stone Burst causes enemies to take increased damage from your other skills for a time and reduces Stone Burst spirit cost. This kind of converts Stone Burst away from necessarily being your primary damage source to being a bit more of a setup skill, right? You can kind of debuff enemies.
You can use Stone Burst then together with companions to have Stone Burst make your companion skills do more damage, essentially.
Or Boulder or some other,
for example,
primary damage source, and then you can use Stone Burst to kind of set up that build. Really interesting to see how players
what turns that into a curse skill, essentially.
Additionally, we've got aspect of the Rabid Bear, which empowers your Grizzly Rage to apply rabies and increases your poison output. Stormcrow, which is just lightning ravens. Your ravens are now lightning. It looks awesome.
And Shred gains a 4th attack
aspect
that
of the
hits
Agile
all
Wolf, which
surrounding
gives
enemies.
Shred a 4th attack. Shred normally is like a 3-part combo, and now it's a 4-part combo that deals more
leveling
damage
alts
on that
will be easier than ever because you get the Paragon points at level 60.
Well. All right, so that is Druid. Really looking forward to playing some Druid in 2.0. But let's move on to the Necromancer, because we got a lot to get through. We
get a new ulti.
Soul Rift. This is a new Darkness ultimate skill. So Necromancers kind of had 3 ultimates already. They had one that was blood, one that was bone, and one that was related to summoning. And now we've kind of completed it, and we've added a darkness or shadow damage ultimate. Soul Rift creates an area around your character, kind of follows with you, that just constantly deals damage over time. And it's going to be sucking out the souls of enemies who you're hitting. And every time it sucks out a soul from an enemy, you're going to gain some essence, and you're going to gain a barrier. So you can stack up this barrier. It helps you be survivable, and it deals really good damage over time. Supreme Soul Rift gives you bonus damage for every soul that you absorb, and Prime Soul Rift causes the soul absorption to also apply vulnerable. Let's take a video of this in action here.
So you activate this,
right, so
and you bury up for sucking their souls out. Look at the range, how good this is.
That, you have another way to give yourself defenses. Necro has historically had some trouble with that, right?
Cool, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really important part here. And when we get to the next slide, talking about some of the passives, I'll highlight. We're adding a bit more barrier into the Necromancer's kit,
and we're getting more barrier.
Blood Necromancers always had a really easy time surviving. They had a lot of fortify and a lot of max health.
And it moves with you. Yes, really, this is tied to your character, so you can move around and you can increase the duration.
Survivability, and so now we're introducing
you can increase the duration to keep it permanently online.
That kind of non-blood Necromancer builds, the Shadow and the Bone and Summon Necros,
So imagine an ultimate that
and are able to scale into that late game.
It's there the whole time.
All right, so as I mentioned, the new passive. So they have a new key passive called Affliction that there's this new concept of Affliction where applying vulnerable, crowd control, or shadow damage over time effects to enemies will apply them with Affliction, which is going to make them take increased damage from you and your minions. Additionally, when you apply a curse skill to someone,
you can do damage with your curses now. You can spam Decrepify to do damage.
A big chunk of shadow damage. So this kind of turns your curse skills, your Decrepify and Iron Maiden, into offensive skills. You can curse an area, and then they take a big chunk of damage as well. And then this will scale up with the bonus damage that you've dealt, or the bonus affixes that you have for that crowd control, vulnerable, and shadow damage. And along that same theme, the new legendary Paragon node Frailty is going to cause
this is a must-have Paragon node because you curse
so
guys.
It plays very nicely with the Affliction key passive.
And then 40% more damage after 4 seconds.
Once again, more skill tree passives to spend those extra points on. And I want to highlight Necrotic Fortitude here in the upper right that gives you it's just a generic passive that gives you a lucky hit chance to gain a barrier. And so that's going to be really good for anybody who wants just a bit more bump of survivability and to play into the more barrier focused on Necromancer.
Great, Aiden.
Yeah, going back to Affliction really quick, I love the idea of using my curses offensively, like as a damage skill. I think that's going to be such a blast.
Yeah, it's really cool to just.
New expenses paid. All of the stuff here is free updated though.
I think it's really.
This is all the free stuff everyone is getting.
Love playing with it.
With the expansion.
It goes really well with the utility changes. Now that we have way more size increases in utility, it gives you so many more utility options. Those curses
still
get
a
pretty
movement
huge,
skill for Necro.
And it feels great.
Yeah,
for all of
that
us, we just
needs to wait for season 7 or 8.
I love that one.
Absolutely.
If we're honest with each other.
All right, let's talk about some of the new items coming for Necromancer.
So the most important one is that Necro can just lucky hit.
New unique item, the Unmaker, a unique helm. This is going to empower the Soul Rift, the new ultimate skill. Of course, you gain some
Soul Rift duration increased by 8 seconds. Chat, 8 seconds.
And every 30 essence that you spend while Soul Rift is active will increase its duration up to 8 seconds. So as long as you're active and kind of spending the essence with the Unmaker, you're going to have a very long duration of Soul Rift. And then for every essence that you gain while it's active, which absorbing the souls does trigger essence gain, you're going to do a pulse of damage around you, some bonus damage. And so it really encourages you to just keep
another ulti?
Soul
Yes,
Rift
it
up
did.
all the time,
Because
constantly gaining
the
and
ultis are
spending the
useless.
essence. And it's going to be really, really fun to make that build work.
Most of them.
Additionally, we've got Reaping Lotus aspect. This empowers your Sever, your core skill. Sever will no longer return to you.
So,
previously, Sever was
aspect of
kind
Fell
of
Gluttony, guys. The Golem gets another explosion.
Now it just goes out, and then it
that
splits into
consumes corpses.
3 specters at the end, deals some extra bonus damage, and then that's the end of the Sever. So it really does
if you
empower
use the Golem
it on
ability,
the,
you get Flesh
swing
Eater
out,
now.
And looks really cool. We got aspect of Fell Gluttony
Like
that
that.
empowers your Golem. Whenever you cast your Golem's active, deals a big pulse of damage around it. And your Golem will then consume corpses to reduce its cooldown. So anybody who really wants to build around making your Golem as strong as possible, this is going to be the aspect for you. And finally, we've got Phasing Poltergeists aspect, which causes your Bone Spirit to split into 3 spirits that deal a percentage of the damage as well. I think we got a video clip of this one because it looks really sweet. So you cast Bone Spirit at one target.
One is really cool because if you pair this together with the Spirit Wave Necro, it's going to be insane.
Enemies as well. So it kind of gives you increased area of effect, and if there's just one target, of course, it'll reconverge back on that same target as well, but also just adds a bit more AoE capability for your Bone Spirit build. Very cool. All right, so Rogue. Rogue gets Dance of Knives. This is a new channeled skill for Rogue. It's an agility cutthroat skill. And it also has a pretty interesting mechanic where it has some charges that will recharge, and how long you can channel it is based on how many charges you have. It's going to take 1 charge per second of channeling, but there's no energy cost or just like a normal cooldown. Here you can just channel it as long as you have charges. And while you're channeling, you're going to be spinning around, you're going to be throwing knives at enemies nearby. And
it's really funny because the channel skill, so you hold down the button and
really
you
is kind of like a spin to win kind of build on Rogue here. You've got Enhanced Dance of Knives, which gives you some charge refund as you're moving with it, because that's what we really want to encourage, is this constant motion, this forward momentum. And Methodical Dance of Knives drops some stun grenades when you finish channeling, or Disciplined Dance of Knives will slow enemies and has a chance to pierce through the enemies that you're throwing the daggers at. Let's take a look at this in action.
It's really nice because you can essentially like move like this through the dungeon.
Spitting, throwing some daggers around at everyone, and yeah.
This is awesome for speed farming. This is like the best speed farming skill.
And that animation is just amazing.
Absolutely.
So this is what you're going to do.
And you can see there at the end, they had the upgrade that drops a bunch of stun grenades at the end. Obviously,
just hold down the dance button and never stop dancing.
You use this to get into a big cluster of enemies, then you stop the channel, you drop some stun grenades, reset some of your charges, and you're good to
Rogue,
start again.
similar, but it has charges that you need to replenish.
Those are perfect for like you run into an elite pack after slaughtering a bunch of normals, and it just annihilates the elites. It feels amazing.
But the new Paragon Nord, the Danse Macabre.
All right, so we've got new passives as well. New key passive is Alchemical Admixture, and this is empowering your non-physical damage. So rogues can do poison, shadow, and cold through their various imbuements. And when you deal 3 different types of that non-physical damage, the potency of your imbuement skills is going to be dramatic.
Is Dan's mistype? No, I think Dan's Macabre
and the more
is
bonus damage that you
like
build
that.
on your gear for bonus poison, shadow, or cold damage, the further that potency gets increased. Really encouraging you to mix and match the different elements. It's really thematic with
this is fun, a chemical mixture, because you're essentially forced really to go for more imbuements than one.
That we've kind of had in the game, but really wanted to give that robust support of a key passive for. And also we've got a legendary Paragon node, the Danse Macabre, which encourages this kind of 1-2 combo of casting mobility or subterfuge skill, increases the damage of your next skill, whatever it might be, by quite a substantial amount. So you
like with all these new passes, by the way, you have to consider that you have 10 more points to spend on these,
and it hits
right?
Very
I mean, 4 points go into your ulti,
and, actually
so they're gone now.
Your moment-to-moment rotation.
But 6 more points to spend in passives.
And of course, we've got the new skill tree passives as well. All right, new items. We've got the Pit Fighter's Gall. This is the ancestral unique ring. Or sorry, just it's a unique ring. It's not necessarily, you can find it before ancestral tier.
See, you can also find uniques as ancestral and as
so your smoke
normal
uniques skill will increase your critical strike damage and then leave a cloud of shadows behind. And while you're within that cloud of shadows, you're going to be constantly regaining stealth. And so there's a lot of interesting ways you can play off of triggering going into or out of stealth. And Pit Fighter's Gall is just going to really enable that when you cast smoke.
Could you temper like damage out of stealth with this ring and just do damage out of stealth consistently?
Support Dance of Knives. And
you could
the
probably,
daggers from Dance of Knives have a chance to shatter, creating more shards of metal that deal bonus damage. And you can now use combo points on Dance of Knives to further increase the channel duration if you've opted into the combo points specialization. Aspect of Poisonous Clouds plays well with Pit Fighter's Gall. When you gain stealth, you create a cloud of poison damage.
See, when entering stealth, so you go out of stealth, then into stealth, then out of stealth, then into stealth, and you do a poison cloud all the time.
Enemy to
massive poisoning.
So if you're freezing enemies because you're playing Alchemical Admixture and using Cold Imbue,
Starless Skies, I hate this being so good. Don't you worry about getting Starless Skies. You might not get it so soon.
All right, moving on to the Sorceress. The Sorceress gets a new conjuration skill called the Familiar. This is a conjuration skill that is all 3 elements. It is a shock skill, a pyromancy skill, and a frost skill. So there's 3 charges of it, so you can cast it back to back, and you summon a familiar of the element of your last skill cast. So if you just cast a pyromancy skill, you're going to summon a fire familiar. If you just cast a lightning skill, you'll summon a lightning familiar, and same with a cold, you'll summon a cold
familiar. They do burning damage, chill, or
and with the enhanced
stun
effect, these familiars will do a bonus effect. So the fire familiar will constantly apply some burning to enemies that it's around. The cold familiar will chill, and lightning familiar will stun. And of course,
straight from D3. People were asking for this a lot,
so
me included.
From all of your bonus fire damage.
And that aura, Charles, is really great, right, to tap into some of the the passives on the Sorcerer.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if there's a lot of passives that say, hey, you get bonuses against burning enemies, for instance. Now, if you have the Fire Familiar, that's going to really easily be able to apply that constantly, and you're going to have pretty high uptime on having familiars out.
It doesn't work with Talrash's ring, though, so that's a bit unlucky for Sword.
Let's take a look at this in action.
This is how it looks.
All right,
see, that's
so initially
the familiar.
we cast a Frost Familiar here, right? It's jumping around, and it's landing, it's dealing frost damage. Then we cast a fire skill. Now we get a fire familiar jumping around and kind of dive bombing on enemies. And then finally we get a shock familiar, a lightning familiar here that's going to deal lightning damage. So you can kind of mix and match these.
And they jump like down and do
depending
damage,
on what skills you use, what combination you cast them in. And it's really flexible. It fits into a lot of different builds. You know, even if you're just a pure, say, fire sword, and you just want to do fire damage, you just want to do burning, this could still fit because you're just going to be able to summon the fire familiar. But it really reaches its maximum potential as you're kind of mix and matching these to suit the situation.
Social skills are missing something visually. I agree. They could be cooler.
The enemies.
You can have
Lightning Spear's going to be crazy with this. If only it actually nerfs Lightning Spear.
We only have a couple of them out on screen, but I think you can have up to like
and the Winter Glass. It does nerf the Winter Glass because the Winter Glass can now summon familiars instead of more Lightning Spears.
Once we get to,
it's funny, like it does actually nerf the existing build unintentionally by adding another conjuration.
But first, let's talk about the new passives, and we've got Enlightenment. This really also plays into the concept of mixing and matching the elements. You see it's got all three kind of colors on there. Casting a skill grants a stack of Enlightenment or 3 stacks if your skill was a different element to the one before. So you're alternating here. And whenever you gain max stacks, you're going to become enlightened, and you get a ton of bonuses.
Enlightenment is super cool because you can make sure to have this permanently stacked up, right?
It's really a reward for mixing and matching those elements, more so than any other key passive we've had on Sorc before. And similarly with the legendary Paragon Node fundamental release, each fire, lightning, cold attack you make against an enemy increases the damage they take from all sources by 10%. So you really need to hit them with all 3 types to gain the maximum bonus here. All right, on to the unique items. So Side Bindings. This is a unique gloves, and this plays right into the familiar. So whenever you cast familiar with this unique on, you're going to summon all 3 elemental variants at once.
Sadly, the gloves still don't work with Tarasha's ring.
Restrictions on it. So familiar's duration is going to be dramatically increased, and its cooldown reduced, but you're going to have 1 less charge of it. So you won't be able to spam this quite as much, but you press the button once or twice, and then you get the maximum familiars out. They're all over the screen, and they're going to last for quite a long time with this unique glove. So it's going to be really, really powerful too. If you're all about this conjuration build, all about amping up the power of the familiar, it's an awesome unique for that. Additionally, we've got new legendaries for the aspect of overheating. After channeling Incinerate,
it's still sad that it doesn't work with it, Neil, because it would be cute to cast all 3 familiars with the gloves and instantly activate Tarasha's if you wanted to.
Bonus. So really just powering up your Incinerate.
Just the thought of the combination,
Flash, this powers charged bolts. And after you hit a certain number of enemies with charged bolts, your next 3 casts of charged bolts will no longer send out bolts. They're going to send out big waves of lightning that deal even more damage, and it's always going to be a crit. And then aspect of Elemental Constellation, once again, more about the mixing and matching of all 3 elements. Casting one of the
elemental daggers
will summon a matching type elemental dagger that'll pierce through enemies. And the damage of that dagger is going to be increased if you get all 3 of the different element types in that time frame. All right, so I think we've got new mythic uniques. Of course, how could I forget new mythic unique items? These are the strongest items in the game.
Yes,
we've
helmet
got
and chest.
Shroud of False Death, and I think the really cool part about this is it's just inherent affix. It's going to grant +1 skill rank to all passives. And this is really awesome. As
+1 to all passives is just scam.
This is just a ton of power for this new unique chest. And its effect is, if you haven't attacked in the last 2 seconds, you're going to gain stealth and bonus movement speed.
See, I want this for my necro. Finally,
mechanic that has been on rogues and a little bit on druids with the werewolf builds. But now every class, if you get this mythic unique, is going to have some access to stealth. You can drop out of combat for a little bit, and then you get into stealth, and you get tons of movement speed to maybe move on to the next.
Obviously useless for necro. Let's be fair.
And it's a really simple line, all passives, but it's literally all passives, which is insane. Like it's incredibly powerful.
200% damage to angels and demons, chat, with the Air of Perdition.
We've also got the Air of Perdition, a mythic unique helm, and this one has as an interesting effect. So it says, give into hatred and earn Lilith's favor, increasing your damage dealt by 60%. So just baseline, this is a huge damage bonus. And the second line here says, slaughtering enemies to briefly steal Lilith's favor from, or slaughter enemies to briefly steal Lilith's favor from nearby allies. So this means if you're playing in a group with somebody else who happens to have the Air of Perdition equipped, you are able to steal Lilith's favor from them. Lilith will only favor one of you, and you actually gain double the bonus of this, right? If you steal someone else's favor, you get 120% bonus damage, and they would get 0. But if you're just playing this solo, no one else has Air Perdition around, it's
you just get a 60% damage increase. That's
bonus damage, which is still a ton and very impactful for a Mythic Unique. All right, I believe that is actually everything. Wow, that is so much new class content, new skills, new
really
legendaries, new everything.
Damn.
And I didn't even get to talk about some of our other, more regular class balance changes. Updates to existing skills and legendaries.
It's 60 multiplicative.
Make sure you
it's
definitely check out the patch notes. There is still more changes to come, but we're already really deep into this Campfire chat, and we didn't want to extend it too much longer. So make sure you check out the patch notes for all the details on those other changes coming as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Charles. I know we have gone through a lot of information. We're in hour 1.5 of this Campfire chat.
So
as I said,
out of this stream, I can make at least 20 videos, and I have to make them all tomorrow, right, Chad?
We still have 2 more things that we do want to really cover off. And as Charles had mentioned, there are a lot of other class changes that we didn't actually fit.
I have to make all these videos by tomorrow.
Items. So that will be on patch notes, and patch notes will be available on our blog for PTR immediately after the stream. So please check that out. We are going to jump into some quality of life items. And so, Colin, do you want to take us through some quick quality of life items that will be coming with 2.0?
Yeah, I'll go quick so we can get to the super exciting, cool thing. So the first one here is you can now select your preferred town portal location. So how that's going to work is you're going to open up the map and hover over any of the waypoints, and when you right click on it, it's going to set that as essentially your preferred location, and whenever you town portal, it's going to take you there. So this is really helpful for when you're doing whispers, for example.
No sleep now. I'm going to go to sleep and start making videos tomorrow.
Location,
I have no
do some whispers.
intention to break my life.
You go right there. You don't have to open up the map, then click on the waypoint, then click on accept. Like, it's all very seamless, and it's just removing a lot of the inputs that you have to do to get back to town quickly. The next thing here is we're adding a dungeon key inventory tab.
So a new inventory tab, so we don't have to share them, chat?
So that just gives you more space for more activities. So much room for activities. The next one here is we've done a pretty substantial rework of Monster CC, and this is in the spirit of we want to have really clear sort of delineations between normal monsters and elite monsters, and we didn't like how often you were getting slowed down and how mandatory.
This is important. Monsters with long death animations now die
instantly. I always felt bad to be fighting this huge horde of enemies, and you see this elite, and you're paying attention to the elite, and then like this goat man mauler comes up and like sneak attacks you and knocks you down for 3 seconds, and that's the thing that kills you. That always felt like bullshit, right? So what we've done is we've sort of overhauled a lot of the normal monster CCs to be quick and snappy. Like, you still feel them, you kind of want to avoid them still, but they're much less sort of the reason why you die entirely. So the vampire impale, when like the two-hander like comes and stabs you and stuns you for 3 seconds.
He might still have the cool death animation.
Immobilize, so you can't move, but you can just smack him in the face. And then the werewolf leap is another great example where previously they'd come out of stealth and like leap attack on you, and you'd get dazed and you'd walk around confused, and now they just does a quick knockback. This next change here is small, but I think it's a blaster's delight, which is all the monsters that had really long death animations all die instantly. You don't have to wait for the loot to hit the ground. It's very satisfying.
Surprisingly huge,
the big ass like spider hosts that crawl towards you. When you kill them, they pop instantly, and all the spiders go and hit the walls, and it feels great. The zombies feel really good too. It like they pop instantly when you kill them. And it's a very satisfying experience. So this should speed up combat quite a bit, and it just feels really good. The next thing here is their socketable inventory tab, another tab for you to put socketables like gems and other socketables. And then there's also an additional stash tab that we're going to add. The next thing, if we could roll the clip, we took out just about all the...
That's call and gone?
Would go up and then like click on the plunger and don't get hit by the spikes, that's all been replaced entirely with just monster packs of varying sizes, and it's just way more seamless. In this case, we only rolled some normal monsters, but sometimes it's a couple of elite packs. You never really know what you're going to get. It's like an Easter or a Kinder Egg, I should say. And it just helps the dungeon flow substantially, like to just sort of blast through those things.
Yes, the dungeon
midpoints. And then
a
handful of dungeons have had their procedural logic updated, just so there's more variation in the layouts. So when you play it, it's just going to roll out differently. This is really just iterating on our dungeon set to make them feel much more sort of flow-inducing, not slowing you down. And then the next one here
so the idea behind Nightmare Dungeon is that you can finally run through
it has a big impact
without having to backtrack.
When you get those Paragon and level up notifications, we're actually going to tell you how many. So sometimes you'll realize, oh my god, I have like 15 skill points I can spend. And it actually tells you the number. And it's a nice quality of life change. So I think that's everything.
Awesome. Thank you, Colin, for running through quickly. I appreciate the efficiency of going through all the quality of life changes. Now I know Jeevan has been very quiet over here. He's only chimed in a little bit. And we do want to talk about a new thing that is coming to Vessel of Hatred, specifically, and for Vessel of Hatred players. So
I've seen the new Nightmare Dungeons. They're streamlined.
Talk us through it a little bit.
Yeah, so it's my privilege to kind of talk about a feature that the whole team's been working very hard on that we haven't really mentioned much. And we looked at the expansion. We had all these cool things.
New feature.
Torment, new class skills, Spiritborn. But we thought there was a hole, and we wanted to particularly give build crafters a new way to play for Vessel of Hatred. This is for folks who, like me, whose dream cooking show has nothing to do with British baking, but instead would be called Colin's Kitchen. Twitch chat, if you would binge Colin's Kitchen, let us know. Let's. And I think some of you already kind of have an idea.
That joke fell flat. No one knows what he was.
So yeah, about. let's get into. As some of you already know, we're going to be talking about rune words.
Ta-da!
Yeah. So let's start with a little background. So rune words were in Diablo 2, and they were a very powerful way of augmenting gear with socketable content. And
don't worry,
there's a lot of good sort of
nostalgic
feelings. 2. They were popular. They were remembered fondly. You can look on the right. That's one of the most iconic examples from Diablo 2.
I don't want this. That's
the name
too complicated.
Is Enigma, and you would make it with runes, Ja if Bur, and it would get you some really cool skills that would come out of it when you put it all together. And for Diablo 4, we wanted to retain the soul of what Diablo 2 runewords did, which is combining socketable components and creating more powerful
items. The cool thing is we can finally do something with our sockets.
But we also wanted to do something that felt appropriately fresh and new. And we wanted to lean into what's unique about the modern game to make the Diablo 4 version of runewords and make it stand on its own and really feel like the right version to be given to players.
Yeah, and what was so awesome about Diablo 2 runewords, right, was you got the set of runes that made a god item, right, and it broke the rules, like being able to teleport on other classes. Like
that explains why Helm has more sockets now. Helm has 2 sockets.
We really wanted to embrace that in a way that extended builds and
you can have 2 rune words activated
with this item.
On Helm, Pants, or chest, and then 2 can be activated.
Yeah, and you all have a lot of builds that you started with from the base game, and we want to add on to those.
That's how it works.
So, what are rune words? They're a way for you to make your own spells. So there are 2 types of runes. There's runes of ritual, and they specify actions from the player that they have to trigger. So you can see the example here of the Yule rune, which is a legendary quality rune of ritual. You have to cast a skill, which has a cooldown. So, Frost Nova or something like that. Then you have runes of invocation. And these grant powerful effects as a result of satisfying those runes of ritual. So the example here, the Gar rune, gives you 2.5% critical strike chance for 5 seconds. And you can stack up to 10 times, up to 25%.
So if you cast a skill that
and
has
you can
cooldown,
mix and match these. There'll be a lot of different runes of ritual and runes of invocation. And you can put them together as you see fit. So when you combine a rune of ritual and rune of invocation, you pair them together, you put them in an item with 2 sockets, boom, you form a rune.
That tells you how often you have to cast it.
And as you can tell, there's going to be rarity. We're going to have magic, rare, and legendary, and the higher rarity runes will have more potent conditions or effects. So one of the important elements of this is called offering, which is the rune resource system. So your runes of ritual will generate offering, and they're meant to feed into their linked runes of invocation so that they can consume that offering. And the sort of more demanding rituals that we would ask of you as a player gain you more offering. At the same time, the more powerful invocations that you would try to get require more offering. And so there's sort of a like shared economy there. So if you can look at these runes on the right, you get 50 offering for casting a skill with a cooldown. And this rune only requires 25 offering for it to trigger. That's where overflow comes in. Overflow is when an invocation receives an offering in excess of what's needed to trigger.
Will they be auto picked up? Probably not.
More simply, we want you to have a mix and match system, but we want the pieces to be not super hard that they can't fit together easily when they have some rough edges. So many invocations can get different bonus effects when overflowed. Some of them might get increased radius to the effect.
So
some of them might get
50
increased
offering.
duration.
It takes 25 to activate, and if you overflow more than 25, you get multiple stacks.
The Gar rune only requires 25 offering, and it's getting double that, which is 50 from the Yule rune. So every time you cast a skill with a cooldown, you'll get 2 stacks of 2.5% critical strike chance, or 5% crit strike. And so that's kind of how you get to play with this system, and you get to optimize it in different ways.
And it creates a lot of flexibility, right? Even like if you do a really demanding ritual trigger, for example, on a really low offering rune of invocation, it's almost a way to start scaling that rune of invocation in a completely different way beyond just triggering the rune.
Exactly. Yeah, it lets us as developers be more flexible in creating wide ranges.
The interesting part about this rune system is they can do so much with it and add so much more
for the rituals, and you get to kind of decide which ones you think fit your build or are cool.
Right.
And we do our best to make sure that you can almost cook up anything. So a few rules. Runes can be socketed into items with 2 sockets. We've added another item.
You can start crafting your own skills. Oh, it's going to be interesting because you can even use skills from other classes.
Helm, your two-hander, your gloves, and
with
your
rune
helm,
words
two-hander,
applied.
pants, and chest. They can only be paired with a rune of the opposite type.
But it's only available for people who own Vessel of the Hatred. This is not free.
You can have a maximum of 2
This is only for Vessel of
equipped.
Hatred.
You can't equip the same rune twice, and they're available for users who own Vessel of Hatred.
I know
they
this is going
stack
to make
in your
people mad.
inventory in the new socketable inventory tab, which will also have your gems. And runes are tradable between other players who own Vessel of Hatred. And they unlock with a quest in the campaign, both runes dropping from as loot, but also rune crafting, which we'll get into later. And they drop at a higher rate in the Undercity, which is a specific place you can farm.
I think it's okay that it's only for people that have Vessel of Hatred, but still.
So this is a Barbarian, and the rune of ritual they have is travel 5 meters. Very simple.
And then you cast Earthquake, guys.
The Earthquake, which
Crazy,
is a
right?
legendary aspect that you've already seen before, which requires 100 offering.
So you travel 5 meters, get 50 offering. If you travel 10 meters, you get a free Earthquake.
And then
with the new Earthquake key passive, see?
Just run around.
New Earthquake.
Boom, Earthquake. Dropping.
Insane.
So if you essentially circle around the boss, you're consistently making earthquakes below them.
Oh, yeah. The earthquake train is leaving the station.
What I love about this is
it doesn't
just count your
They need a reason for you to buy the expansion. I think Rune Merge is a fine way to do that.
Like the distance
you don't need
runes,
runes,
right?
Oh,
yeah.
whoa.
And you can see it here in like the whirlwind, for instance. Like it's obviously spawning earthquakes.
What are the offerings, though? I don't get it. No, so the activators are creating offerings. Travel 5 meters,
guys,
50
we're doing it live. Let's
okay.
just move on to the next one.
Here.
Okay, so we have a necromancer here with the rune ritual cast a non-channel.
You get 25 offering.
25 each. And then this is a classic from D2.
And if you create 400 offering with the trigger,
so
you get the thing. Okay.
This necro's got 5 skill ranks for Reap.
So now he has to cast a non-channeled skill. Okay, so spam Sever, and every Sever cast creates 25 offering. And if he casts enough Sever to have 400 offering, he gets +3 ranks to all skill ranks. And look at the bottom left. These 2 skills show how it works up. So by casting, the bar moves forward.
Offering needed.
Yeah, I really like the little tracking.
See, like there, bottom left, the 2 skills. That's the
so
progress, how it shows.
Micromanage this. You can just add a
it's
glance
now
and see
working.
that, hey, I just filled it up, and now I get +3 ranks of Sever.
So now he gets +3 ranks to sever because he activated that, and then he does more damage.
What was that?
So yeah, this Necro is just cooking, and oh, what is this? Another broken clip? Did they just cast teleport? What?
And yes, there is a rune word that lets you teleport.
Teleporting Necros. What are you cooking over there,
It's not as good as they make it out to be, though.
Yeah, I'll stop making jokes mostly. Yeah, so what we really wanted to lean into with D2 rune words, among other things, was the ability to cast other classes' skills and use their power and harness it into your build. So with rune words, you're going to get to do that. Each class is going to share 2 skills and 1 legendary aspect, like the.
So cast skills from other classes, guys.
And some of them are even going to get to cast improved versions. So, for instance, instead of the standard Decrepify from the Necromancer, you get to cast Horrid Decrepify, which is the upgraded version. And that's we did that for a lot of reasons. We wanted to make some of them feel a little better and a little more powerful, and a lot of it is about balance. But one important thing that I always want to highlight here is that you always cast the best version of the skill if you have upgrades as the sort of home owner of the class, right?
Or
so what that means is, let's say you're a spirit
from the druid,
the Cry rune, which is the Vortex spell.
Right.
If you have points into the upgrade, then you'll cast the upgraded Vortex when the rune goes off. So I don't think there'll be any class envy. Like everyone will get the best version of their own skills, and then they'll get to use other classes' skills. And we're really excited to see how people can construct new builds and new archetypes and what they can do with using the power of the classes.
And that says enhanced Warcry, so that means Necros can become Berserk, right?
Yes.
That indeed does mean that.
Necro can become Berserk now, but it's really not worth it.
Enhanced Warcry is a winner, I gotta say. That one's real strong. We've already seen people...
Warcry doesn't work on your minions, sadly. Runes a one-time thing. You suck at. No, you can suck at them and pull them out again.
Kind of interesting new combinations and builds you can come up with by dipping into other
there's
class
more
skills,
runes, Bushki. They don't show you all of them. There is roughly 30 different runes.
The possibilities
15 activators, 15 effects.
With any given class.
10 activators, 20 effects, something around that.
Exactly. And not only do we want you to augment your builds with other classes' skills, but runes will scale with gear. So when you get more interesting runes of rituals, you'll find ways to optimize them as well and get more output. So
and
we really feel like people will have a lot of
theory
crafting that they can build off of the rune word system, and I'm very excited.
Just go to the jeweler and unsocket them.
By the way, that's what she's do on PTR for me. Just break the game. See every build you can find that totally destroys everything. So now we have the crafting element. So using 3 of the same rune, you can use them to roll a new rune. You go to the jeweler, or it might not be the jeweler, but we'll see.
So you can use the runes to craft mythic
combine
units.
3 of the same exact rune, and you'll get a new rune out that is guaranteed to be different than the rune you put in. And there's a chance to uproll it to the next highest rarity. So if you put 3 magic runes in, there's a chance that it'll be a rare rune. Same with rare. There's a chance that it'll be a legendary rune. And then on top of that,
runes can be traded, so you can trade other people the runes they need for their
you can use runes.
Mythic.
Each mythic unique can be crafted with a specific set of runes.
Does gear level put restrictions on which rune you can suck it? Nope, you can use runes from level 1 on,
and
essentially.
1 resplendent spark. And this is in addition to the existing...
They're going to be great for alts to level and have fun with.
So,
I was just going to say this really harkens back to the sort of crafting that was so core in D2, with the runes of being able to match 3 and get the next upgrade, but in a way that's a little bit more flexible and gives you more progression out of it. And this is all tradable, right? So that match 3, those crafting mythic uniques, what do you think that's going to do?
I like that they're tradable. I'm just a bit scared of the RTM market.
I think it's going to really build a sort of player community around how to acquire the runes you need, whether it's because you want to combine, you have 2 and you want to find that 3rd one to combine for a new one, or you're hunting for a specific
mythical. No, there are no mythical runes. You can craft mythic
someone's going to win the
uniques.
capitalism game there.
The
so
mythics.
We'll see how that goes.
Harlequin Crest, Starless Skies.
I really like how the
resplendent sparks.
The rune crafting system makes it so you're kind of always progressing, right? If you're getting rune drops, then you're getting materials that you can use to progress towards higher rarity runes and potentially towards these mythic unique items. Unlike
mythic runes,
some of the other loot drops, if you
items.
don't find a good piece of gear, it just ends up being salvage. Here with runes, you're kind of constantly getting some of that progression, even if it's not always the perfect rune right now.
Yeah, I think that's something that when we did talk to a lot of sort of D2 diehards when we built rune words, and one of the things that most of them tended to mention consistently was like every rune drop is.
I mean, Rotas will work, but you have to do Torment 3 or Torment 4 to really get mythics, I guess.
The exact thing you wanted, right? It still meant something to you one way or another.
Because there's no more tormented bosses to kill.
I know we've talked a lot about a lot of stuff today. We had progression, itemization. We talked about quality of life. We talked about class changes, and of course the newest thing, which is rune words, which will be in Vessel of Hatred. But the one thing we did want to quickly talk about was PTR. PTR is coming up. And we want to give a little bit, or at least some specifics on what that PTR test is going to be, and also hear from the team on exactly like what they're looking for from you guys out there that are playing, like for feedback as you guys play through the systems. Everything that we've actually talked about today is going to be present in this PTR. So all the class balance changes, the progression changes, rune words will also be part of the PTR. So we actually do want players jumping in and checking it out. So let's jump right into some of the PTR items. So as everyone knows, PTR from even the last PTR that we had will carry over content from your main account. So if you've already done all your renown, cleared your fog of war, your altar of Lilith status will carry over onto your PTR
and renown, fog of war,
we did do a character copy as well. It was a while back though, so there you may find that it might be a little dated from like the character copy that you have on live, but that will exist for players to actually use. One thing I will note is that we are planning on having 2 different testing phases for PTR specifically. The first testing phase will actually begin next Wednesday and will run through Friday, about midday, where we're going to actually give players the opportunity of kind of just starting characters from fresh, because we really need people to try out the new progression systems that Colin and Aislinn were talking about specifically in the beginning of the stream.
Which I really like.
So
they're going to give us a PTR
Wednesday
so we can level
through
up
midday Friday, we really need players to jump in, check that out, give us feedback specifically regarding anything tied to the new progression systems. Around midday on Friday, though, we will be turning on the rest of the PTR, which will include things like rune words and all the other features that we were kind of talking about. All the other features will be part of it, but rune words and things like that will be turning in on Friday. One thing that we've heard from feedback from players specifically, especially as we have addressed this in the past, is that there is going to be a boost vendor available for this PTR. So in Kyovashad, players will be able to go and visit this specific vendor. This is the best video that I was talking about because this Fallen is dancing and it looks absolutely amazing. This vendor will be available and you'll be able to interact with it. And this vendor will actually then be able to provide you a ton of enhancements to your character, which we do have a list of here. Okay, you will be able to boost your character up to level 50. Level 60, of course, which is the new level cap after Vessel of Hatred actually ships. We will end up clearing out your whole map, your waypoints, Fog of War. We will do your class mechanic stuff and have that already unlocked. All torment tiers will be unlocked. Your potions will be upgraded completely. And then I know based off the feedback that we got from like, the last PTR was, hey, it'd be great if we could generate like legendary items, if we can get all the unique items, all the runes, or that's new now, but all the runes and everything like that, including masterworking materials, that will actually be available in this vendor. So this is a way for players to be more efficient while testing and being able to give us more feedback, especially around endgame related items. So we really need players to jump in for PTR. One last caveat I do want to mention is Infernal Hordes will not be available in this specific PTR. We are still doing some work on that right now before we actually get it ready. But all the other features
within the game will be available. I'm going to be busy.
As I mentioned, will be busy, and it's a permanent feature, so it's coming back to the game no matter what. And then separately, I do want to remind everyone that PTR right now it is still just PC BattleNet only. This does give us the flexibility of being able to upload, change things on the fly, like things like turning rune words on Friday, for instance, gives us we have the flexibility of being able to do that on
because otherwise they can't
platform,
give
so
you
it's just easier for us to
the updates quick enough.
Additional work from our side to be able to make things like that happen when we can do testing specifically from that end. But Colin, Aislinn, I'd be really curious to hear like what you guys are looking for specifically in this PTR from feedback from players that they can focus in on and provide feedback on as they go into the test.
Yeah, so I think we really want to see people focusing on the new journey. So starting from level 1 and feeling out what difficulty tier is right for you.
Should you start leveling an expert?
And if that feels like it's the difficulty tier that you would expect to be on based on how powerful you've managed to make your character and how many of the progression systems you've engaged with. Like if you engage with tempering and you go all out and you're like, I'm going to make my character a blaster, even though they're only level 30, like how far can you go with that? And are you going as far as you expected you would be able to go?
Oh, I'm going to be, it's going to be a lot.
Great points. It really is about, are we hitting that expectation that we've sort of created, right? Which is, we really loved how the mind cage was functioning. We loved how tormented bosses felt in terms of having hard
Elrim, I mean, the most accomplished 15-year-old in history.
Tiers sort of meeting those expectations of all the things that we have had in the previous game now mapped to a more streamlined system that should be much, much easier to navigate.
Awesome. And I know on the class side, like Charles, what are you kind of looking for? What's the team looking for on that front?
Yeah, I think we're really looking at the new skills and the new key passives for each class and how they're usable at all points in your character journey, right? They should feel good to press when you just first learn these new skills. But they should also feel really good when you're in the late game and you're trying to, make a build all around them, right? Around your stone burst. Like, does it feel like that has enough support and that you can, make a stone burst build or dance of knives and or all the other different skills? Like, do they fit in? What's their appropriate power level? And we really want to make sure that the new skills and the new key passives enable new ways of playing our classes and that they feel satisfying to build that way.
Awesome. And Jeevan, I know you mentioned to everyone, break the game with rune words. So is there any more extra items you're looking for in terms of feedback?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely mostly about that. I want to see what people come up with. I want to see, what you can cook in terms of builds. You can do something fun or cool or unexpected. And also, I'm highly interested in the sort of balanced feedback. I think we'll get it from all of you. But we've had a lot of people on the team work very hard on conceptualizing how to make sure this stuff is right on the edge of broken without actually being broken. And you'll get to prove me wrong if that isn't the case. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I know we do want to jump into a little bit of Q&A before we kind of wrap up. I know we've been here for a little while.
They actually went through in 2 hours. I thought it was going to be longer.
Specifically from Twitch chat. I know probably the most popular question right now from the community is about Armory, and I do want to start off with that specifically. And I do also want to just confirm that we are working on an Armory. The team is cooking on it right now. We just don't have it ready immediately, but as soon as we have an update, we will be providing that to the community. There is work for an Armory happening. We're not purposely ignoring it. I promise you.
PDR available with NVIDIA GeForce.
It is in the works specifically from that end. So
I'm right there working on it.
I know we have questions from Twitch chat, so this is where I actually butcher everyone's name. So in standard fashion, I will continue to do that. It's just a little different now because I actually have a screen in front of me, which is actually really, really beneficial. But I guess we'll start off with a question regarding the different difficulty tiers. So this is from Double DHZ, which is, since we now have 8 difficulties, does this mean with power increase in later seasons, more difficulties will be added? Are we planning on adding 20 difficulties like in Diablo 3? What's the plans around that?
Yeah, we want to be really measured in terms of when we add difficulty tiers. I think it sets us up for adding them when we feel like it's an appropriate time. We don't want to get to a spot where we have 20 different difficulty tiers we want to have
which I would
just
find
enough
stupid. 8 is
granularity
good.
to support the amount of
10
power that
maximum,
we're adding.
but we don't need
what we don't
20.
want to do is sort of say, okay, we're going to add things like rune words or add things like seasonal powers and then nerf all of you by making the monsters 100% tankier to compensate for the power. We'd actually rather create a system that when you get that new power, we're going to add another band of difficulty to get even more efficiency out of that power. So that's been the sort of guiding light, is we don't want to continue to sort of nerf players into a spot where they can sort of use all this new power to push. A great example of that is previously in seasons, we would actually increase monster health to compensate for some of the seasonal powers. Now, if you get seasonal powers,
that was hard.
If you're blasting Penitent and leveling to 60 faster, good for you. Like, that's something that we think is actually really important to the system.
Awesome. I know next question that we have, this is a question I've seen a decent amount. This is from Explosive Cat. Hopefully your cat is not exploding. What's the purpose of Nightmare Dungeons now that glyphs have moved out of Pit?
Yeah, so Nightmare Dungeons are going to be where you receive your masterworking materials.
Nightmare Dungeons? Where's the Merc material?
Because Nightmare Dungeons are going to be following the difficulty tier system now, you're going to be able to go into higher torment tiers, or rather higher difficulty tier Nightmare Dungeons, and get more mastering materials out of that. So just like, all other kinds of content in the game now, being able to go into a higher difficulty
Most important,
of
guys,
that activity
there is not 3 different masterwork materials anymore. There's only one.
Yeah, the grind, sort of putting a grind currency actually fits much better in a Nightmare Dungeon compared to the Pit.
And you get,
because it means that every sort of elite
the higher torment
kill,
you do.
every chest you open, or every corner you go into and you find an elite pack, those are going to be masterworking materials, as opposed to today where it's like, well, the instant I make a turn that is not in the direction of finishing this dungeon has been a waste of my time because I want that glyph. That completely changes when everything in the dungeon is dropping masterworking materials, and we think that feels so much better for that type of content. Conversely, with the Pit, again, we're going to reward you for pushing difficulty.
Event, masterwork materials.
To sort of get there quickly and get that reward.
Yeah, no more transmuting down. So just one material.
Yeah, so just for people, because I think when they immediately heard like, well, now it's just moved to Nightmare Dungeons and it's just at the end. It's actually part of the whole Nightmare Dungeon. It's not just the end goal, getting to the end and getting masterworking materials there. Just want to clarify for chat, because I know immediately
there's a good amount. There's a good amount at the end.
Right now,
you kill the boss, right? Of course,
the
boss
has
run
to the boss,
shit,
right?
But
you don't actually play
what's
the
really
going
to feel great is like when you run into a massive elite pack, like you just randomly run into, we spawned maybe too many. Those are all going to represent, little loot bags of masterworking materials, which is going to be huge.
Awesome. This question is from RXU105. Are runes reusable?
Yeah. So, by the way, I just want to say, chat, I've been reading Twitch chat, and what you've said has struck a chord. Anyway, yes, they will be reusable.
Can't take you anywhere.
You could unsocket runes and you can move them into different items. Yes, absolutely. I saw a few related questions to that. They don't get to exist in the same item as gems. You do have to pick between gems and runes on any individual item.
Size of gems.
Awesome. I know there was a question related to another. Well, at least I don't know if Charles, you want to answer this, or if you have additional details. There's a lot of questions related to one of the mythic uniques, and it's additive damage to demons and angels specifically. I don't know if you want to talk about
I will confirm that is the wording on the effect. Plus damage to angels and demons.
There you go, guys. We'll just leave it at that. And
no further comment.
I know, no further comment on that. Additional question that we have related to Paragon is, why cap the amount of boards instead of just capping?
That's a complicated question, because
this is from Hotner.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Something that I think we can take back and really think about. We had discussed, and we felt like the cleanest solution from just sort of the flow perspective was that we wanted to just make it really sort of compact and make those choices about which glyphs and which legendary nodes and eventually what rare and magic nodes matter to you. But that's really good feedback and something we can continue to monitor as we go into PTR and as people get their hands on it. Again, it's really about making those boards more punchy, and the connections between those boards
activate
is something that you navigate during your journey.
Glyphs are insane
but the
now.
sort of endpoint is about making those really chunky choices on what glyphs you want and what legendary nodes you want. And we think that ultimately, especially now that Paragon is realm-wide and all your alts, I think we touched on that earlier, all your alts get to benefit from this. It's really going to streamline that process of getting your points locked in quickly on those alt characters and get them into the end game really quickly. But that's a really good point of feedback.
A question from WTF, Akalaka. I don't know. See, this is bad. Yeah, you get the point. Well, everyone need to be in Kyovashad to change difficulty like it is currently right now.
That's a good question. We've added, actually, yeah. So you could imagine how obnoxious it would be to do the pit in Karagar and then have to go to Kyovashad to then unlock the new Torment tier that you just got. So we actually added difficulty tier selectors in Karagar as well as Kyovashad, in addition to Kyovashad. And then we also have one in Kurast, and there's also another one, I think, near the Dark Citadel entrance. We've added them in a few locations across the game.
Fantastic, right?
A little bit of a better
Imagine having to go back to Kyovashad every time you want to go to Torment 1, 2,
question
3,
from
or
a few
4.
people. There's like Corinter. There's another question from 9 Tons of Pain. Are glyphs kind of shared between all characters in the realm, or do they have to be leveled up separately?
So those are still leveled up separately, but that's something like going forward, we definitely want to emphasis on like making alt more seamless to play into.
Glyphs are not shared yet because they would be
there's
too
some underlying
powerful.
feedback there, which is, wouldn't it be great if the Paragon glyphs were account wide? And it's like, yeah, that's something we can take back to the team. And philosophically, we really want to start moving towards a direction where making alts is really easy to get into and feel powerful. So that's something we can definitely take note of.
And I'll also highlight that, right, because the Paragon points are shared account wide or realm wide, as it were. If you make a new character, you're going to get a ton of Paragon points right away, which increases your power level, which maybe means you take on a higher pit tier, and then you get the catch-up mechanic on leveling up those glyphs. So it is a little bit easier for your alts to level up those glyphs as well, even if it's not 100% shared.
Yeah, that's very true. You can level them up really fast in the pit if you're pushing deep.
I feel like the generic ones should be shared.
There is a question regarding Eternal Realm characters, like, what happens to them when 2.0 kind of launches? What's the I'm assuming because they already have like 925 gear, if they're at max level, they'll be brought down to that new eye level that we had mentioned. Is there like any specific changes or anything, or is it kind of laid out exactly?
Eternal people must be scared. True.
Oh, I can answer this. So we are doing some adjustments for those Eternal players who really like to play the game on one character. We wanted to make sure that there was new loot to chase. We also just needed to make sure that with the new character level adjustments, we sort of had to adjust the eye power of items now that the fact that the max character level is 60. In addition to our goals of really sort of creating more grounded numbers, it does mean level 50 is getting an eye power adjustment, as well as the affixes are being adjusted. But we are going to max roll every single affix that we adjusted power-wise. So, for example, if you get a 5, we're going to take those items and adjust them. We aren't going to re-roll those affix bands. Like if you had perfect affixes, we're just going to essentially max roll all of them within that band. So there's no feels bad about, I had this perfect item and you ruined it by readjusting it. But the sort of main takeaway there is we wanted to make sure in patch 2.0 that there was new loot to chase.
There is tons of people who actually do enjoy Eternal. I know weird, but there are.
And that's all sort of in service to
that.
It's
also a nice thing to revisit with all the things you've earned. I mean, I have one Eternal character with all mythics, for example.
Awesome. Question from Ice Panther. Rumors, are they applicable to all items and weapons? Are they restricted to specific types of equipment?
It's kind of cool.
Additionally, can gems be inserted into equipment with runes?
Yeah, they can be inserted into all types of equipment, so they're not restricted from being in uniques as long as you have 2 sockets for that unique. And the to restate the slots that are available with 2 sockets, on base game it's 3. It's chest, pants, and 2-hander. We're also adding a second socket to helm, so you'll have 4 slots. And you cannot mix runes with gems in any item, and you wouldn't want to. You'd basically be losing the benefit of them.
Awesome.
Yeah, runes are runes, gems
I know
gems.
we have some questions related to like some co-op bugs. I will say that I've gone on, I know, like forums and Reddit and addressed them, that we are working on them. I can tell you the team is most definitely working on them right now. Excuse me as I cough. Still getting over my sickness. And then I know this is actually
none of them drank your water in 2 hours,
question.
Chad. Jesus.
Are there runes for G and then Vun?
Oh, I mean, my narcissism certainly would have let me do that, but I think we can't do that sort of stuff. Unfortunately, I would have loved to, but I will say there are, the runes have these sort of phrases that they unlock when you actually compose the spells. And we have some, I think, fun references and Easter eggs to.
Can they actually bring in dice for
Diablo
a year to
games
make the
of the
actual
past.
color black?
And,
I think
so
there's new
hopefully
dice coming, 4 different ones or 8 different ones. But we anyways got new dice just
Awesome.
recently.
And then runes, are they stackable?
Yeah, they are stackable, and we have added a new tab for them as well. We have a socketable tab, so all your runes and gems will go there. So
there we go.
Would be pretty good for your inventory.
Ooh, socketable tab.
Yeah, that would have been really messing with inventory if runes did not stack, and now that they have their own tab. Yeah, and now they have their own tab, which is really, really good. So cool. I know we are very over on time. So I do want to make sure that we let everyone go here so that they can eat, because we've now gone well past lunch over here in California. Just a reminder for everyone that PTR is actually going to be starting next Wednesday. We will have patch notes and the blog up immediately after the stream, specifically on Wednesday here, so you guys can check it out. Check out the patch notes. It's 17,000 words, a lot of words, so I apologize. I will say that for other locales, it might be until like early next week before those patch notes will be available. It just takes a while for us to localize on some of those, and it kind of came in a little hot. So we do plan on actually having
I actually post everything on Twitter, so like everything more or less that's pertinent, right? So if you wanted TLDR, you get this on
PTR
Twitter essentially.
Wednesday. We'll have 2 different phases.
Wrapped up.
Wednesday through Friday will be that first initial phase where we need players jumping in, checking out.
Not crazy about leveling glyphs and pit. My pass on D4.
And then starting on
you
Friday
have to do the pit to get into higher world tiers, Crimson. So you kind of have to do the pit to actually progress in the game.
And test out everything that they need to regarding rune words and all other things that are tied to endgame. I do want to give a huge thanks to everyone on this panel here. Colin, Aislinn, Charles, Jeevan, thank you so much for going through a ton of information. I do want to also call out the rest of the Diablo team, because they have been doing a ton of work towards Vessel of Hatred, and of course, patch 2.0 and Season 6. One thing we will say is that you guys actually haven't heard about Season 6 yet.
If you don't like
we still have information to tell you about Season 6.
That's
we'll be sharing that more here in the coming weeks as we head towards launch.
Do you need Vessel of Hatred to play PDR?
So there is still a seasonal theme and mechanic with Season 6 that we'll be sharing here soon. So thank you guys, everyone, and thank you, Diablo community, for tuning in. Check out Diablo4.com immediately after the stream, and we'll see you guys in Sanctuary. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, we're ending with this. Best. I love it.
So we're waiting for the patch notes.
Can't forget the most important
waiting
member
for
of the
the
team.
patch notes. Refreshing. Diablo patch notes. Alright, so that was the live stream chat. Now we are opening up the patch note category, waiting for them to actually post the new important thing, right? All news, Diablo 4. That's August 29th, but these are not the ones we're looking for, right? We're not looking for the 1.51. Looking for the next thing. What are the runes they talked about, please? I didn't watch it fully. Rune words. Rune words. You put a trigger in and an effect, and the trigger could be cast a cooldown skill, and then you get effect X like cast Decrepify, get crit chance, restore resource, summon a wolf, do 100 damage, shoot a meteor. So it's not from D2. It's similar-ish to what D2 does, but it's not D2. Okay? Okay, they haven't posted it. They promised to post it straight away. We get robbed. Johnny, good to see you there. Happy enjoying it. All news. Diablo 4. Still nothing. Anyone got it already? Chat, anyone get the new patch notes already? Good. At this point, this Diablo 5, they truly did a good job. I mean, this is going to feel like a new game, at least for people that haven't played in a while. So this is very important, right? The changes need to be significant. And I think they achieved that, right? So this is how it's supposed to be. This is what we were expecting, a new game. They already implemented rune system in Diablo Immortal a long time ago, and it's garbage. It is actually really natural in the game because it just emphasizes it. So, like, imagine right now, you, instead of putting a gem on that gives you more max life, okay? Instead of just getting a gem for max life, you put a gem on that every 5 meters you move gives you 50 offering. And if you move 10 meters, you have 100 offering, and you would summon a spirit wolf. Or for example, if you move for 20 meters, that would be 200 offering. You get 20% more crit chance. Or other things. I mean, there was Petrify, so you would just have to move 25 meters and you would cast a Petrify. And that's just one example. I mean, if you have the trigger for casting core skills, right? There was one cast core skills, non-channel core skills. You get 25 offering. So if you're spamming your barrage as a rogue, I can spam 10 barrage in 2 seconds. So that's 250 offering. If I spam 20 barrage, I get a free Petrify. That's actually pretty damn good. Right? We're in Germany. Oh, somewhere in Germany. You know, the good old somewhere in Germany. Okay, we're my patch notes. We're like updating vigorously. And I'm checking the partner Discord if we're getting already messages. So what there's no like there's no patch notes yet. I guess we'll just look at the patch notes tomorrow, chat. I cannot imagine locking up rune words behind Vessel of Hatred. I mean, it is what it is. You have a choice to make. You do want rune words, you buy Vessel of Hatred. You don't want rune words, you don't buy Vessel of Hatred. Also, pay to win only applies if there is a competition. There is none. Right? I mean, there's tops, the leaderboard, the gauntlet. But who actually fucking cares about that? Right? So, I mean, there's no PvP. There's nothing. There's nothing to pay to win. You know what I mean? If you want the rune words, you buy. If you don't want, then you're okay with it. That's literally on you. They said that the expansion will add new things, and the base game still gets upgrades, right? So the base game still gets cool stuff. What can I say? The decision was made. I don't think that's going to change. It's one of their sales argument why you should be getting Vessel of Hatred. And that's a personal choice to make, right? If it's not, like, if all the changes are not incentive enough to check out Vessel of Hatred, then may it be as it is, right? I think Mercenaries are also only Vessel of Hatred, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not actually sure about this one, so don't take my word for it. But I wasn't sure if, because Mercs are in Nahantu, right? They start in Nahantu. So I'm not sure if you can actually get them if you don't have Vessel of Hatred. I think they're Vessel of Hatred only. They were announced as Vessel of Hatred. So, like, if you don't buy the game, you don't get Mercs. In D2, runes get in the expansion as well, Blessed. Well, there you have it. It's not like it hasn't been done before. I mean, I think you can't complain because the base game is getting huge upgrades. Right? I mean, the base game is getting all the progression updates. So all the new world tiers and everything. You're getting the new pits, the new nightmare dungeons, the bonus skills and uniques. There's tons of stuff coming for people that don't want to buy. And you can then still choose to buy, essentially, right? That's on you. Buy or don't, however you feel like. I think we're going to end it here, as the patch notes are not there. They're going to be there tomorrow. I'll be reading them then. We'll make a video, so don't worry. Everything comes updated. For the people that missed a lot of things, again, I have everything posted on X, Twitter, like the whole rundown. But I'll make videos tomorrow on each respective thing. So on the Necromancer itself, like he's going to get a separate video in the long run. But all the class changes, all the new uniques, all the new things, how the progression now works, Paragon system, levels, torment tiers. I'm going to break this all down in a very nice TLDR way to understand like how the new leveling works. But boss ladder, tormented, like everything. I think it's like pretty understandable already how they presented it, but obviously not everyone has the time to watch 2 hours of stream. So we're going to make that simple to explain how to level now in Season 6, how that's going to work. So expect that tomorrow. Many videos to come. Because it's going to take me a few days to get all this info like really packaged nicely, right? Because I want to make it right for you. I don't just want to splurge it out. I mean, I could make 4 videos tomorrow already. But I think I want to give you like meaningful content in the next 8 days that kind of makes this understandable. Okay. Skin store. I currently have no time to upgrade the bone splinter stuff. Like we're like doing many other things right now. So I'm sorry that we don't have time for that. Patch notes are up. Then I can give you the link for the patch notes at least, so you can check that out if you then want to. Still don't have them here. Still don't see them. PDR 2.0, what you need to know. There you go. Post this out. I'm going to put that in the live chat here on YouTube as well for the people that want to see. And I'll be reading through this tomorrow to really get everything in. I mean, they have these patch notes really good together, but like there's bonus explanation I think needed to get everything. Also, by the way, this is important. Torment 4 minus 1,000 armor, minus 100 all resist. Right? That's going to be interesting. So you just have to get 2,000 armor, which is going to be a challenge. And you just have to get, well, 175 resist, right? So that's going to be intriguing to get done, to be honest. I really like this. You like, it's kind of cool. So we're going to have a fun time. That being said, I'm out now. More videos to come tomorrow. Enjoy the patch notes, and I'll wrap it all up for you in a meaningful way. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see each other.